Ah, what music!
There is no terrible way to win. There is only winning.
We won't be out long.
Take your time. Track's all yours.
You ready?
The name on the middle of that steering wheel should tell you that I was born ready. Hit it.
Attaboy. Let me drive. I won't make a fool out of you.
I got a message for all of them. Shake and bake.
What does that do? Does that blow your mind? That just happened.
These cars, you sit in a box, a coffin, gasoline all around you. It isn't like it being inside a bomb.
It's tough enough being a girl on the track. Living in my dad's shadow doesn't help much.
You have to be kind to the car. You feel the poor thing groaning underneath you.
No race was ever won in the first corner.
I'm gonna give you an engine, low to the ground, extra big oil pan will cut the wind from underneath you. That'll give you 30 to 40 more horsepower.
Every one of us has to find a reason to do this. You do it because you're driven.
Brakes are warm. Tires are warm.
I'll work in the cars and I'll drive and I'll eat and sleep and I'll work in the cars and I'll drive.
Damn fast, and when he runs so close together, it requires fantastic concentration and rather special skills.
I was beginning to think I'd never be anything more than a piston-happy lead-foot punk. Then this starts to happen.
If you're going to push a piece of machinery to the limit and expect it to hold together, you have to have some sense of where that limit is.
Besides, the best drivers don't dwell on the future or the past. The best drivers focus only on the present.
They could never have imagined it, those pioneers who invented the automobile, that it would possess us like this in our imaginations, our dreams.
I'm gonna give you a fuel line that will hold an extra gallon of gas. I'm gonna shave half an inch off you and shape you like a bullet.
Somebody put it in your mind you gotta be perfect every time out or you're a failure. Well, forget that. Just forget it.
Racing is in my blood.
I was put on this earth to race cars.
I accept every time I get in my car. There's 20% chance I could die, and I can live with it, but not 1% more.
No, Nicky, don't bring the percentages into this. Don't be a pro. The minute you do that, you kill what's good about this. You kill the sport.
And at that speed, your reactions can barely keep up with these sudden changes in direction.
You ready to put away your toys and grow up?
You want me to work the pit and you drive? Fine, we'll try that.
The car's a living, breathing thing, and she's alive.
If any of us imagined, really imagined, what it would be like to go into a tree at 150 miles an hour, we would probably never get into the cars at all. None of us.
Are you ready to become a real race car driver?
I am just as good as anybody out there on that track, and I don't need anybody to win my races for me.
I wish my daddy were alive to see this, to feel this.
And when we get you prime painted and weighed, you'll be ready to go out on that racetrack. You hear me? You're gonna be perfect.
You don't understand what happens, do you? They make 10,000 cars, they make them exactly the same way, and one or two of them turn out to be something special. Nobody knows why.
When I won it was probably the last time I ever felt pure victory.
So it has always seemed to me that to do something very dangerous requires a certain absence of imagination.
Because I'm quicker than all of you.
Soon you will know what it is like to be defeated by the hands of somebody who is truly better than you.
The only thing to do here is to drive just as fast as you know how and hope your car doesn't break.
And if you no longer go for a gap that exists, you're no longer a racing driver.
If you ain't first, you're last.
There's 40 other vultures out there who managed to finish the race on their tires. You see Darrell Waltrip using up his tires?
There's nothing I can't do with a race car.
I mean, hell, isn't that what we're in this for? To stare death in the face and to cheat it? Come on, there's nobility in that. It's like being knights.
Sometimes you could swear the whole thing's falling to bits.
No pressure, nobody breathing down my back, just driving because I left it pure.
On the other hand, I suppose potential problems are in the back of your mind all the time.
So in many ways, I feel responsible for what happened. And
You were, but trust me, watching you win those races while I was fighting for my life, you were equally responsible for getting me back in the car.
You're so lucky. Sit there all closed in by machinery and bolts, precise things. There's hardly any room for you. It must be a nice, safe feeling.
Yeah, you gotta learn to trust something. Might just as well be the seat of your pants.
A lot of people go through life doing things badly. Racing's important to men who do it well. And racing, it's life. Anything that happens before or after, it's just waiting.
Well, we can drive. We can drive beyond the limits of the tires, the engine, the car, anything else.
Look out there is the perfect lap. No mistakes, every gear change, every corner. Perfect. You see it.
I just hope when you do, that I'm there to see it.
Ask any racer, any real racer. It don't matter if you win by an inch or a mile. Winning's winning.
But it isn't just business, is it? What we do, it's passion, love, which is why we're prepared to risk our lives for it.
Racing That's the name of the game, isn't it? Win or lose, put up or shut up.
Why does everybody keep telling me what my problem is?
That you get so emotional.
You would never, ever say that to a guy.
If you don't leave your feelings off the track, you're never going to get what you want.
I'm a race driver, and I can win it on my own. Please let me race.
Fine. Then let's race.
Hello folks and welcome once again to the Retro Racing Managers League. It's the 1991 Grand Prix World Championship season and it's the streets of Monaco. It's the fourth race of the new season and boy are we in for a spectacular showcase. As the Grand Prix teams and drivers flood onto the streets of Monaco, it's going to be an amazing turning point in the season. Last time out, of course, we saw the Williams team in dire straits and in ambivalent joy as Ayrton Senna lost his victory on the very last lap with mechanical problems and his teammate Thierry Boutsen was able to pick up the pieces and take the win. Now we're here on the streets of Monaco. Things are going to be very different indeed. It's Eddie Cheever for the new look Eurobrun Ford that gets on pole position. More on that in a moment. Aguri Suzuki alongside him on the front row of the grid with Ukyo Katayama alongside Alan McNish the Real right up in fourth position on the starting grid. Fabrizio Babazza in the Jordan lines up alongside Andrea De Cesaris and then Roberto Guerrero and Damon Hill line up in the top 10 along with the men on the fifth row of the starting grid. Johnny Herbert alongside the Swede Rickard Rydell. Martin Donnelly puts the Fonmetal in 11th on the grid alongside Carl Wendlinger in the second of the two Jordans. Roland Ratzenberger in his Fonmetal is 13th alongside Roberto Moreno. And Christian Fittipaldi now steps in alongside Paul Tracy in the Modena Lamborghini team. Eric Comas is alongside his teammate Pierluigi Martini. Nicola Larini is joined at Reynard by Stefan Johansson, replacing Emanuele Pirro for one race. Tommy Byrne and Ivan Capelli, and then Joachim Winkelhock and Laurent Aiello in the AGS. And at the very back of the starting grid, it is Hideki Noda and JJ Leto in the Monteverdi. So as the cars get themselves ready for the start here in Monaco, it's going to be a very interesting challenge for all drivers concerned. But as you can see, the Eurobrun team on the pole position have now ditched their sponsorship completely with Jägermeister. Gone is the Jägermeister orange, and in comes the red and white of Café de Colombia at the request of their chief sponsor and the driver Roberto Guerrero. So it's an all-new look for the Ford team for the remainder of the season, and away we go. Cheever getting a good start. Katayama making a beautiful launch from third on the grid and charges forward and takes the lead. An amazing start from Ukyo Katayama as the rest of the field tries to filter its way through then on the first lap. And everybody just trying to work their way forward. That's the colony of Roberto Moreno tucking in there in the midfield. Colony not quite as strong at this race here in Monaco as they have been in previous races. Certainly not for Roberto Moreno anyway. Minardi and Fonmetal really seem to have come alive a little bit more on the streets of Monaco after qualifying, but you can see there's still progress to be made and still drivers trying to make progress. Real have done a fantastic job as McNish finds himself in fifth position now behind Fabrizio Babazza. But we're on board with Roberto Guerrero in the Café de Colombia Ford Eurobrun. And that behind us is Andrea De Cesaris in the leading colony, and that's Martini. Martini getting it wide, trying to hold on alongside Tommy Byrne. So that could have been a bit of a nasty one, but fortunately they managed to move away from the issue. Still going side by side though. Still plenty of drama to play out here on the streets of Monaco as the cars work their way through. But Katayama leads Suzuki, and that's just getting rid of the threat from behind. Stefan Johansson stepping into the Reynard after Emanuele Pirro has had to miss the Monaco Grand Prix due to a super license issue. Apparently he'll be back though in time for the fifth race of the season in Mexico. Eric Bernard, however, has been given I think it's 2 race, it might even be a 3-race ban for the 1991 season after falsifying information given to stewards following the San Marino Grand Prix at Imola. As a result, he has been replaced by Christian Fittipaldi, the Brazilian, for the next couple of races at least in the championship. There is Aguri Suzuki, second position, just trying to hang on to that second place now. Cheever's pole position all fallen apart as he now finds himself down in third place in front of Barbatza and McNish, and then Guerrero, De Cesaris, Hill, Herbert and Rydell. So there is your man on the second lap here at Monaco in the pre-qualifying race. This is the race that determines which 3 teams will join the top 10 competitors from last year in the Grand Prix grid. But obviously that is to come later in the programme. So Aguri Suzuki is trying to stay in touch with Yuki Katayama. It looks as though they're playing the reverse strategies to what they were doing earlier in the season, because we saw one Honda have difficulties and the other have fast speed. It was played basically the other way round. So it looks as though this time they've let Katayama play the cat and they've let Suzuki play the mouse, as it were. Tommy Byrne actually scraping the Armco there as he runs down at the tail end of the field. So that was a bit of an awkward moment there for Tommy Byrne as the Zack Speed driver runs his way through, but is obviously hoping for an opportunity to put himself into Grand Prix racing proper. Starting to turn out to be an interesting development for the season for several teams. But there is Eddie Cheever. This is the all-new look Ford Eurobrun livery, the Café de Colombia colours on that particular car. It's all changed for them. They ran in Jägermeister orange in their traditional livery from the late 1980s, and now they have decided to go with their new sponsor. Ford badge still very prominent on the engine cover, as obviously this is going to be the Works Ford team moving onwards as far as they're concerned. And it's a long way forward for the team. Apparently there's already talk that the Ford team is going to completely take over the Eurobrun operation, and it'll just be Ford based for 1992. Katayama and Suzuki, the Hondas, running first and second with their Leighton House branding. Just dropping back steadily. I wonder if he's on the heavy fuel load. It certainly looks as though he's got a heavier load in the car to carry than Katayama does. So they complete lap 3, and Katayama does a 1:19.9, and the gap opens up to 3.9 seconds. That would seem to suggest that Katayama is on a much richer fuel strategy than Aguri Suzuki. Cheever in third, Barbatza is in fourth, then McNish, Guerrero, De Cesaris, Hill, Herbert and Rydell. Now obviously this long race, it's a long race, it's half the distance of the Grand Prix. One of the longest races in the season, if not the longest race in terms of lap duration for the pre-qualifying race. You can see that there's been some progress made by a few of the teams, even since Imola, with their cars being a little bit more competitive in the tight, narrow streets, where perhaps car performance is not quite so important and driver skill is. McNish and Rydell have managed to get their Reals into the top 10. Very impressive from them, considering they've barely managed to do so at any point over the course of the season so far. This is only the 4th race of the year, don't forget. There are still talks from so many quarters about who's going to come into Formula 1 in 1992. Katayama and Suzuki. 1 and 2 once again in the Hondas. Eddie Cheever, the new colour scheme for his car. Works his way onto the main straight once again. Katayama's already at Saint-Devote, would you believe? By the time that Suzuki goes through, he's already at the top on the way towards Casino Square. So Ukyo Katayama just disappearing out in front. It's definitely good news for the Honda team and their fans. So everybody in Japan will be very happy with the way things are currently progressing. So it's certainly going well from their perspective. Had a fabulous run so far. Out in front. Still, the competition rages on. Still the battle going on in this 3-man brawl for second place. Suzuki, Cheever and Barbatza, and I do get the feeling that this could end up being a real headache for Eurobrun and Jordan, although they do look like these two teams are going to be the ones to get through. You've got to feel for McNish, who's actually struggling to stay with them, although mind you, Alan McNish might be on the no-stop strategy as well, I should say, because you do get a bit of a split with teams in pre-quali. Some teams will just have one pit stop during the pre-qualifying race. However, there is another one. There is another opportunity. There is another strategy where people essentially do not pit at all. Cheever going up the crest to the Casino Square. We ride on board with it. Looking Heading back to the Jordan Ferrari of Fabrizio Barbazza, the Italian. Now let's look at the fuel differences. Chiva has a 15.2 litre fuel tank on board. Fabrizio Barbazza can go a little bit further. McNish is on the heavy fuel. Right, that gives us a bit of an indication, because McNish is not going to need to pit. So Real have obviously worked on his qualifying and put him on a heavy fuel load in the hope that they can get him through. The Cesaris also has a heavy fuel load in the Coloni. The Dalaras are running heavy, so is Rydell, so that's strength in numbers for Real. But the big question is going to be how much time will they actually lose. Suzuki's on the heavy fuel load as well, so that's protecting Katayama's lead. So that's as we expected it. So this race doesn't appear to be between really to be a big problem for Honda. This is really a race between Eurobrun, Jordan and Real as to who's going to get through with the Honda team. Because Honda have got safety in numbers up front. Looks pretty safe and sound for them at the moment. But essentially it's got to continue to be so. It's not an easy situation for them. The rivals, that is, behind them. Katayama, look, is already through Casino Square and down the drop up towards the Virage Antonino's into the station hairpin. So this is all going very well indeed for the Honda team. Katayama now 7 seconds ahead of Suzuki and Chiva. But you drop it here and you really do pay the price. This is not the circuit to make a mistake on. But Katayama leads Suzuki, Chiva, Barbazza and McNish, then Guerrero, De Cesaris, Hill and Herbert. Try and get a look at some of the competitors through the field. There is Eddie Chiva. That's going to have to change, of course, now, because it's not the Jägermeister Eurobrun anymore, is it? But certainly they came here last minute with the brand new livery at the behest of Cafe de Colombia, who, of course, support Roberto Guerrero, the Colombian. It's a nice-looking car, but it's still very much the threat of the Hondas up front. They're still putting on a good show. So a sensational situation for all of the contenders this time. Certainly these three having a great duel, and it's only going to keep getting better from here, because there's still a lot more to do and still a lot more to continue with as the battles play on. On board with Eddie Chiva, the Cafe de Colombia Ford Eurobrun. Down the drop to the station hairpin again. Still, they work their way through these narrow streets here in Monaco. Already, we're on lap 8 out of 39, so these laps do go quickly. 1 minute 19s and 1 minute 20s expected during the duration of the Grand Prix later as well. But there is Ukyo Katayama doing a fine job in the Honda, up in front. Now, of course, it was a change of ownership, but not a change of sponsorship that has put the Honda into pre-qualifying this year, because if they had remained as Team Leightonhouse, then they would have been in the top 10 without any issues at all. Unfortunately for them, though, it is a brand new team entry for 1991, with Honda taking over the outfit, so essentially that means that they are now trying to pre-qualify once again, and the governing body of the sport has made this very clear. It doesn't matter how big a brand name you are when you come into Grand Prix racing. No team brand name is too big to get out of the qualifying situation. You've got to run it. And there is a lot of conversation about certain teams wanting to move their way forward rather quickly. Certainly, this battle for second place still very close indeed. Katayama up in front though. And Ukyo Katayama, the Japanese youngster, still making waves in his Grand Prix journey. And Honda very reliant on this young man. They believe very much the future of their outfit and their operations as the field continues to make good, solid progress around the course here. It's really starting to make a few other of the Japanese manufacturers think, well, Honda are getting a lot of headlines in Grand Prix racing these days, not just through their support of the McLaren and Coloni teams, but also, of course, with their incredible work in the works deal. There's already talk that Toyota may convince their Japanese partners, Toms, to come into Grand Prix racing in 1992. They already have a Group C sports car team, which is doing a fair job already in the World Sports Car Championship. And there's already discussions that the sports car operation might actually breed young drivers to move their way up into Grand Prix racing. And there's all sorts of talks about how the future of the Grand Prix World Championship and its tributaries are actually going to help to spur things on. There's even discussion about the championship beneath this, Formula 3000, actually being renamed once again back to its original title of Formula 2, just to make it a little bit easier for spectators and fans to figure out where it stands on the motor racing line. Because a lot of people have found that the Formula 3000 name is actually incredibly confusing. So there's talk of it reverting back to Formula 2. So down into the Nouvelle Chicane alongside the harbour as the competitors continue to race wheel to wheel. Now we go further back in the pack. Here's Nicola Larini and going past one of the Moderners. Now there's a Moderna going slowly. That's Paul Tracy, the Canadian, and he's got an electrical issue. You can see that on his dash. So Paul Tracy in the Moderna with its Martini livery. The Lamborghini squad, effectively. Everybody calls this the Lamborghini Formula 1 team, although technically it is known as the Moderna team. But unfortunately, it looks as though Paul Tracy, the Canadian, is having some difficulties at the moment. Probably wondering why he left the world of IndyCars. So the team at Fonmetal currently just sat outside the top 10. They've made big improvements in terms of their mechanical grip, and that's why the team are obviously making good roads here at Monaco. So Ratzenberger and Donnelly still having a very solid run at the moment as they work their way through. Now here's Aguri Suzuki. Look at the pressure that Aguri Suzuki is under from Chiva and Barbazza. Back on the throttle, into the tunnel. Not an easy situation for Aguri Suzuki to be in. Shake off the attentions of the American and the Italian behind him. Alan McNish is a further 6 seconds down the road. But if he's not going to pit, and there's at least 3 or 4 drivers around him that are going to, then McNish could actually put the Real into second best team spot. That's definitely going to give them quite a lot of an opportunity as they go up the hill. Katayama, 13 seconds clear now of Aguri Suzuki as we're on lap 12. And Katayama, of course, is going to be making a pit stop, but Aguri Suzuki is not. Aguri Suzuki is going all the way to the end of this pre-qualifying race. So it could be good for Suzuki if he is going to get the victory here. But Chiva is going to try and leapfrog at least one of the Hondas through the course of proceedings, but it's looking like he's going to leapfrog neither of them. He's currently stuck behind the one who is essentially holding the road favourable for Honda. So splitting the strategy really has helped the Honda team. There's already been a few team managers that have said they don't like this particular system where teams are allowed to just fill their cars to the brim and go hell for leather. They feel that a better aesthetically pleasing race would be that you have to force a pit stop on every car, and that is actually apparently being discussed for Mexico for the 5th round of the championship. So it could be that these first 4 races are a bit of a false dawn for the tactical gurus at Honda, who have obviously felt that splitting their strategy has been the way forward for them. Chiva, look, getting very frustrated, sat behind Suzuki. He's just looking for an opportunity. The problem is, the Honda is very quick on a straight line, so every time he gets close in the corners, he just can't quite get close enough to the rear wing of the Honda to really make an impression to get through. But in the Benz, it's quite clear that the Ford Eurobird and the Jordan Ferrari behind it are actually the stronger cars. Now, I don't know whether that's down to the lack of mechanical grip in the Honda or just the fact that the Honda is so much heavier. But certainly, you can tell that in a straight line, the Honda is the better car. Through the Benz, it really isn't. So through the tunnel again. Into the chicane. Katayama and Suzuki. 1 and 2. Chiva in 3rd. Barbazza in 4th. Then McNish, Guerrero, De Cesaris, Hill, Herbert and Rydell. We've actually gone 10 laps through this race without too many mechanical issues creeping in. Only Paul Tracy having his electrical issues, but he managed to get back to the pits. So at this moment, no retirements here at Monaco. So it's a bit of a pure race at this precise moment in time. But there's a big gap, as you can see, between Barbazza in the yellow Jordan and Alan McNish in the dark blue Real. So as they come out of the Rascasse, onto the final turn and onto the main straight once again, which isn't really straight, I should point out. 6 16 seconds is now the gap between the two Japanese teammates. And as far as Katayama is concerned, if he can stretch it out just a little bit more, he can get into the pits and out again without losing his lead. But he's got to work a little bit harder in order to achieve that. We're on the 14th lap of the pre-qualifying race. The first 3 teams across the finish line are the ones that progress through to the Grand Prix. And as it stands at the moment, it's going to be these 3 teams: Honda, Ford and Jordan. Here they come. Much better run so far for the Jordan team around the streets of Monaco than we saw last time out for them in Imola. But only really Barbazza getting the best of it. Something has befallen Carl Wendlinger in this race. He hasn't really on the pace at all. And Pierluigi Martini there, stuck behind one of the AGS cars. They've done a great job this weekend, actually, and that's Hideki Noda, the Japanese driver, who is currently in front of Pierluigi Martini and one of the Reynards. So fair play to the AGS. Again, it's got mechanical grip. And proof again that at Monaco, you don't really need to have the fastest car. You just need to have a good pair of hands behind the wheel. And that's going to impress quite a few people, I would think. Hideki Noda bringing the AGS, which has been off the pace all season long. But that car is suddenly starting to find its feet again. So it really is starting to make a massive inroad. Katayama up to the Lowe's hairpin. Still leading, but that's a car in front of him that he's coming up to lap. Now I would reckon that's probably Paul Tracy in the Lambo, as everybody refers to it, the modern Lamborghini. There is discussion that Lamborghini have actually been very impressed with the marketing alone that this team has been able to bring, and the management of the team principal in question has actually really given it a lease of life, as you know, we've got the 2 Dalaras dueling away. There are the 2 Fonmatals currently tucked up behind the heavily fueled Rickard Rydell as well, the Swedish driver in the Real. But it's a similar story for Eddie Cheever. The American is still sat behind Aguri Suzuki. This really is the team of the Americas nowadays, isn't it? It's called Eurobrun, but I don't think they're going to be European-based for much longer. The Ford outfit, very prominent in Grand Prix racing now. With Eddie Cheever of United States and Roberto Guerrero of Colombia. It's very much Ford Americas, as people start to refer to these things in the paddock. As we ride on board with Andrea De Cesaris looking at Ignition Guerrero. So Ignition Guerrero up in front of us, having a very sturdy time of it. And there is Aguri Suzuki, currently running in 2nd position in the Honda. Having a very solid time of it as he runs in P2, but under a lot of pressure from Cheever and Barbazza behind. So still they continue. As Katayama is going to lap one of the Zach Speeds, in fact. I didn't see which Zach Speed. I think that might be Tommy Byrne. So Tommy Byrne having some problems, unfortunately. Either that or his German teammate Joachim Winkelhock. We are on lap 16. And Suzuki continues to run in P2 on a heavy fuel load in front of Cheever and Barbazza. So still they run in close proximity. And a very strong formation from these competitors. Oh, and that's a car in trouble. It's one of the AGS cars dropping out by the look of it. As JJ Leto managed to get through there in the Viant Monteverdi to try and close up on his teammate Ivan Capelli. So JJ Leto overtaking one of the AGS's, which has got to be Laurent Aiello. So I'm afraid Aiello is dropping out of the race if it has not already dropped out. And that is a smoking AGS, and that's one of the 2 cars out of the race effectively then. So big problems there at AGS for Laurent Aiello, the Duracell car. And it's Stefan Johansson. It's Johansson in his one and only race. There he is in the Reynard. So Stefan Johansson out of the race, and I don't think he's the only one actually. Yes, Laurent Aiello is also out of the race. So 2 cars dropping out of the race on the same lap. There it is, the Duracell AGS of Laurent Aiello. I know we're not actually looking at Laurent Aiello, but there is the confirmation on the screen. We saw his car retiring. We saw of his car retiring. We didn't actually see the car be swept away, but 2 cars out in one moment. As Stefan Johansson substituting for Emanuele Pirro. And Laurent Aiello, who's been here since the start of the season for AGS. Both cars now out of the race. So we're looking at Aguri Suzuki on lap 18. We're about to get into Pit Stop City here at Monaco. Because obviously now teams are going to be starting to think about, well, I can make a pit stop now. And And this is where things are going to start to come alive a little bit in this race, and teams who have got the strategy and the tactics right are going to have a very entertaining race of it from here on out. So the battles are set to continue all the way through, but it is going to be a really intriguing and very entertaining battle from here on out. So the competitors continue to put on a bit of a spectacle, a good display. Still, the drivers rage on. But here are the two Vaillant Monteverdis, still going well indeed. The Swiss team just trying to stay afloat. They're just keeping it as afloat as possible under the circumstances, but they really haven't put in the performance here in Monaco that they would have hoped to. How much longer are we really going to see the Vaillant Monteverdi team surviving in Grand Prix racing? As Ukyo Katayama has made his way into the pits, and now we're watching Martin Donnelly make light work of his teammate Roland Ratzenberger. I do wonder if there's a little bit of an issue developing at the Fonmetal team for at least one of them. But Martin Donnelly makes light work of his teammate as he gets through. So Martin Donnelly has got through, and there is a slowing. That is Ratzenberger slowing. So Ratzenberger having some difficulties. Both Katayama and Shiva have come into the pits now. Katayama has rejoined in third. So there he is, getting out of the pit lane. You can just see that. Fabrizio Barbazza having worked his way forward now into P2. So Fabrizio Barbazza in the Jordan, running a very solid race. But Roland Ratzenberger had an electrical difficulty. He has, however, made it back to the pits. So not a bad run there at all. So Ratzenberger has made it back to the pits. At least his race can continue. Winkelhock comes into the pits as well. But we ride on board with Ukyo Katayama, who is 4 seconds back from Barbazza. Hideki Noda pits in. So too is JJ Leto. And that's Donnelly. That is Martin Donnelly. We just saw his teammate hit trouble, and now Donnelly's got a broken gearbox. Oh, that is very unfortunate indeed for the Ulsterman. And Martin Donnelly, I'm afraid, is out of this motor race. So that's one of the Fonmetals going no further. Very unfortunate indeed. So that's game over for one car. And Ukyo Katayama, look, in the Honda, having got out onto the circuit with a little bit of a splash and dash of fuel, has now got himself close up behind Barbazza. So the Jordan of Fabrizio Barbazza still going the distance here by the look of it. Or at least going a little further into the race than at least the Honda did. So how much longer is this car going to continue to put on a display? Damon Hill in the pits, in the Dallara. Still the cars continue to rage on as we drop down the hill. You can see just how quickly Katayama has got onto the tail of the Jordan Ferrari. That Honda is just so rapid. A lot of conversations next year about how Honda wants to take up a top 10 stance next year with an all-Japanese squad. And they want to go for Grand Prix victories. They really feel they can do it in 1992. They think 91 is a bit of a stretch. But certainly in 1992, they think that winning Grand Prix races overall, like they did in the 1960s, is genuinely achievable. Whether it's achievable with Katayama and Suzuki, I don't really know. They're still occasional point scorers at the moment, but certainly they feel that there is potential, a lot of potential. There is Roberto Moreno in the Coloni, still trying to work his way further through the field, having not had the best of weekends so far here in Monaco, as Barbazza comes into the pits from what was P2, although it showed he was P3 down the line. And now, here we go, the Hondas are going to go side by side. Suzuki trying to shake off Katayama for the moment as we ride with Paul Tracy, as he tries to make his way through on the inside of Ivan Capelli, and he makes that through. Herbert's in the pits, so is Barbazza, so is Guerrero. And just as we predicted, Alan McNish has now moved his Real up into third position, with De Cesaris in the Coloni in fourth, and riding... Oh, that's Larini. Larini scrapes the wall as he goes through in the Reynard. So Nicola Larini just running the gauntlet there in the sole remaining McDonald's Reynard Renault. And that team, of course, there's all sorts of discussions about Adrian Reynard's outfit, whether they're going to start building cars for another team in 1992, having had their couple of seasons of play. And there's also potential for Renault to make a return. They haven't had their own Grand Prix team as a works outfit since 1985. a full 6 years ago, so there's discussion that the French are going to want to get back involved, not just as an engine supplier, but certainly the success that they've had with several teams in the paddock has started tempting them again to get back into the world of Grand Prix racing as a manufacturer. And that is Katayama, who's not only got past Suzuki, but has already pulled 2 seconds clear. So that's clearly tactical. They've clearly felt, well, Suzuki's had his win earlier this year. Now it's Katayama's turn. Meanwhile, battle's going on as that's Roland Ratzenberger trying to get himself back into contention here with Ivan Capelli. So they continue to do the business. Meanwhile, Chiva trying to get through on Rydell. Chiva is clearly going to be faster than the Swede, but can he get through? Oh, Damon Hill. Damon Hill hits the wall in the Dallara. That's gone very badly wrong indeed for Damon Hill, and he's broken the front wing of the car. So I'm afraid Damon Hill making a big mistake. And that's really going to cost him as he works his way forward. So big disappointment then for Damon Hill as his teammate Johnny Herbert has overtaken and left him for it. So Ukyo Katayama still out in first position. The Japanese driver, a very smooth run for the Honda team as he runs in a good position. Eddie Chiva hustling Ricard Rydell. The Reals are having a great race after all of this because neither driver decided to make a pit stop. Is Real actually going to get onto the Monaco Grand Prix grid? They certainly look good for it, don't they? 3rd and 5th at the moment. The Cesaris is currently in 4th. And it does look as though the heavy fuel stop strategy might actually work here in Monaco. It won't work at every race circuit because obviously the lighter fuel load cars, if there's an overtaking opportunity, will make mincemeat of their opposition. But here at Monaco, where overtaking is a lot harder, we ride with Roland Ratzenberger trying to take on Capelli once more, and this time he's going to make the dive up the inside. Lovely from Ratzenberger. He really is putting on a great show whenever he can, the Austrian. He's a proper talent. And you just kind of hope that Roland Ratzenberger is going to be snapped up by one of the big teams very soon, where he can really start to showcase what he can do. McLaren driver Gerhard Berger has spoken of him very highly indeed, as Damon Hill finally comes into the pits from what was 13th. It was initially 12th actually, but he then lost ground again to Paul Tracy, the Canadian. So problems, unfortunately, wherever you look, but not always quite easy to explain. Oh, and that's Christian Fittipaldi. Christian Fittipaldi parks the Lamborghini. He had done such a good job. He'd worked his way into the top 10. But I'm afraid Christian Fittipaldi is now out of this race in the Modena Lamborghini. So that is another retirement. And that's very disappointing indeed for the Brazilian, who now has to watch his teammate pass his position on the circuit. And Paul Tracy will just have to sit and watch as the field works its way through. Then the marshals will obviously lift the car, and off the circuit will go Christian Fittipaldi. Very unfortunate for the Brazilian, who is, of course, the nephew of the two-time world champion Emerson Fittipaldi, who is currently still having a great run of it out in the States, in America. And there's Winkelhock. Winkelhock's getting his move on the inside line there. That's very nicely handled for Winkelhock, who is definitely having a good run from Ivan Capelli. But Capelli doesn't have a mechanical problem. He's just really struggling to keep that car pointed in the right direction. I wonder if he's just got aging tyres on that car, and therefore he just doesn't have the same sort of grip that his opponents around him does. So Katayama out in front of this man, Aguri Suzuki, who finds himself in second, but the man in third is who we want to watch. Here we go, Alan McNish, the young Scot, doing a great job in third place. We're looking at him briefly, but there's Ivan Capelli, having a nice little duel himself. He's got a whole queue of cars behind him wanting to get through. This isn't really what Ivan Capelli had in mind. There, however, is Ricard Rydell, and he's about to lose out to the Jordan. So Ricard Rydell has unfortunately lost his position there. But hopefully he is going to continue to make inroads as the field develops. But the Hondas have mastered this strategy fairly perfectly, as Ukyo Katayama leads the way in the Honda. Still, they look good for another relatively straightforward entry into the Grand Prix. Around the outside, this is Nicola Larini trying to salvage another position, and he gets the move up into 15th place for the Reynard. A nice move from Nicola Larini. So he gets the opportunity and surges his way forward. Tommy Byrne looks as though he might be in some difficulties in the Zach Speed now, because he's just had to move out of the way of the race leader. So Tommy Byrne for the Zach Speed crew watches Ukyo Katayama dive past. Japanese driver up front, having a really solid race of it. Now there is Andrea De Cesaris, and he's under big pressure from Eddie Cheever. So De Cesaris in the Colony. Now this is of course for qualification for the Grand Prix. This is a very important battle were watching I should say, for 4th position. There is Eric Comas in the Minardi, who's now trying to make his own inroads into Ivan Capelli in front of him. It's the Italian versus the Frenchman. Eric Comas trying to put on enough of a display to work his way forward. But a really strong performance so far from the Hondas once more. Katayama ahead of Suzuki. McNish in 3rd place. This could be the first qualification this season for the Real team, and they know it. Comas swarming around behind Capelli. This is the battle for 16th position behind Nicola Larini, and here comes the chance. A nice move on the inside from Comas. No worries at all. Eric Comas gets the job done in the Minardi. So there is potential in this car. Eric Comas able to pull off the overtake on Capelli. It just shows you how difficult it is to get that Vajokmin Monteverde around the course. So a very tricky scenario opening up. There's Johnny Herbert, currently sat behind Roberto Guerrero. The Dallara team really started on an amazing footing, and ever since then they've really struggled to keep this all together. Suzuki still running well. Here's Damon Hill getting his move on the inside of Hideki Noda, but that gets shut down fairly quickly. There might be another opportunity coming though. So Hideki Noda is trying to close up on the car in front of him. I think that's Pierluigi Martini in the second of the Minardis. Look how far Katayama has got up the road ahead of Suzuki. That is monstrous pace. Chiva, by the way, has got past De Cesaris. I didn't see where that happened, but De Cesaris has actually lost ground to the American, so Chiva has not only managed to catch and pass De Cesaris, he's now threatening Alan McNish in 3rd position, as now Pierluigi Martini is going to have his run on Ivan Capelli, and it's another stunning move from another Minardi. No problems. Both the Minardi drivers then getting their move on Ivan Capelli in the Monteverde. And Ukyo Katayama is closing up on this train now as well. You've got Damon Hill tucked up behind the AGS of Hideki Noda. This could be a problem for Ukyo Katayama, our race leader. This is all going to be about timing. Katayama's going to commit to it. Damon Hill's too busy dueling away. He doesn't really want to move over and let Ukyo Katayama go, but he realises he has to. He does move aside. Meanwhile, McNish is going to lose this. There goes the move from Chiva. Chiva gets through. So Alan McNish falls to 4th position in the Real. Now the big question is going to be, will he hang on in front of Barbazza? Because Barbazza has also caught and passed De Cesaris. And there's Guerrero getting through on Rydell. So it looks as though the Real strategy may be about to tumble about their ears in the final 12 laps. It was a brilliant strategy, but unfortunately the Real just isn't quick enough to cope with the Ford Eurobrun and the Jordan Ferrari. Barbazza is only about a second and a half away from McNish. So Alan McNish really needs to get his skates on, but going the full distance on the fuel really has hampered them. Now here's Noda, the AGS driver, now moving aside and letting Katayama go, and he's got pressure from Damon Hill behind him now as well. So Hideki Noda has to be very careful about his timing as we watch Eric Comas, who nudges the Armco. And that is very nearly giving him a chance to fall into the clutches of his Minardi teammate. And that was pretty scary for the Minardis. Eric Comas still running a solid race in front of Pierluigi Martini. And still they continue, still they rumble on. Chiva, 3rd position now in the Ford Eurobrun, half a minute back from Katayama, 15 seconds back from Aguri Suzuki. But in the faster car then Suzuki, as Noda again struggling to keep Damon Hill behind him. Damon Hill had to slam on the brakes there to avoid the contact. I don't think Dallara are going to be too happy about that one. And there is Eddie Cheever in the all-new Café de Colombia colours of the Ford Eurobrun team. Their vintage Jägermeister car didn't last long in the end. So the bright orange is gone, and in comes the red and white, which is obviously so familiar to McLaren fans. So that'll be interesting if they do make it through to the Grand Prix, because they could end up racing each other. It'll be a bit like the days of McLaren and Alfa Romeo in the same race. Here comes Damon Hill, trying to go on the far side again, and this is going to be his chance, and he's going to make it. Dives through on the inside of Hideki Noda, that'll do. So a good run then from Damon Hill. He finally gets his man. This is a bit of a problem for Damon, having had his trip into the wall a little earlier on, damaging his front wing in the process. He lost a lot of time coming back because it only happened at the final turn as well, where he'd already missed the pit lane entry. So there goes Ukyo Katayama into lap 30. 10 laps to go in this pre-qualifying bout. And it's looking good for Honda, isn't it? Johnny Herbert trying to work his way further up the top 10. But Rydell is still sat in 8th place. And Barbatza got through. I'm sorry. Barbatza did make it through into 4th position past McNish. I wish I'd seen the move. But it's critical because Fabrizio Barbatza has worked his way through into 4th position, and that means the Jordan Ferrari is going to get through to the Grand Prix after all. The Real tactic has backfired big style. And with 10 laps to go, I fear that McNish and the Real is just going to drop even further back into the clutches of Andrea De Cesaris and the Coloni. It was a great idea. Unfortunately, the idea didn't have that much legs. Wendlinger in the second of the Jordans, 10th position at the moment, really not feeling the vibe here in Monaco, in 10th position for the Austrian at the moment. To be honest, he hasn't really been on the same sort of pace as his teammate Fabrizio Barbatza at any point during the weekend. But this is a race where the big players have essentially kept it going throughout. Katayama leads Suzuki, Chiva, Barbatza, McNish, De Cesaris, Guerrero, Herbert, Rydell and Wendlinger. There's only been about 5 retirements tops in this race. We've had quite a decent run. As Rickard Rydell very nearly joins them, almost loses the car altogether and plants it in the wall. Be so careful with this Swedish driver who's come up from the ranks of Formula 3000. Now worked his way into Grand Prix racing with the Real team. Really hoping that there's a place for the Swede long term in this sport. But the Real squad are hanging on by a thread realistically. So Goody Suzuki still working strong, hoping that there's more where this came from. Japanese driver 21 seconds back from Katayama, although Katayama has lost some time in the first sector being stuck in traffic. But realistically, Suzuki is going to settle for a very calm and collected second place here. The real battle is going to come later in the Monaco Grand Prix, where for my money there's about 4 teams that could win. McLaren still have a good car when qualifying goes well. Williams are obviously on the rise. Ferrari have been solid and strong throughout. And there could even be a bit of a shock upset from the likes of a Brabham, who certainly got better. Rydell, of course, did finish 5th for the Tyrrell team in Monaco in 1990, but he hasn't really had the opportunity since then to continue making his progress. There's Guerrero making his move on De Cesaris. So the Fords are definitely making their way forward. Suzuki charging up the field again. Suzuki really wanting to make something of this race. The second position is going to have to do. There does seem to be this little bit of banter between the Honda teammates. Katayama and Suzuki, ahead of Chiba and Barbatza, then McNish, who has unfortunately fallen a good 10 seconds back now from Barbatza. So a heavy car and very worn out tyres. It's turned out not to be the correct strategy. They thought they had a chance to get into the Grand Prix that way, and I'm afraid it hasn't quite worked out. So Katayama leads Aguri Suzuki. And then Chiva, Barbatza and McNish from Guerrero, De Cesaris, Herbert and Rydell. So Aguri Suzuki still having a very solid race of it. But is the Honda going to be flawless throughout the season? As Guerrero now makes his pit on the inside of McNish, and the Colombian gets into P5. A good run there from Roberto Guerrero, doing a fine job in the Eurobrun. As he works his way forward, the Colombian now into what is 5th position, exactly where he was hoping to move up. And still the team working forward. Unusual not to have quite so high an attrition rate in the pre-qualifying grid. There's only been about 3 or 4 cars dropping out of this race so far. Go down to the braking zone. Andrea De Cesaris making his way up the hill once again. 7th position for De Cesaris. And still they rage and battle on. Of course, the next race of the championship is going to come from Mexico. And that is a high attrition motor race. It always is. So that's going to be a tough one for everybody. Could spring a few surprises. Here's Chiva. Down to the chicane once again. Working his magic as he continues on. But Katayama, Suzuki, Chiva, Barbazza, Guerrero, McNish, De Cesaris, Herbert, Rydell and Wendlinger. That's the top 10, and it looks as though it's going to be the top 3 teams consistently through this season, ultimately in pre-qualifying, as Comas lets Katayama lap him. It looks like it's going to be Honda, Ford and Jordan that go through as we watch Johnny Herbert in the Converse Dallara working his way further forward. That phenomenal livery that the team adopts. It looks sensational, but unfortunately they are really devoid of sponsorship. They could really do with a little bit more support. So down the straight they go again, trying to chase after Andrea De Cesaris. There is Aguri Suzuki. 2nd position, the Japanese driver. Having a very comfortable race of it in 2nd place, just taking it through the motions now. So let's see how they continue through the tunnel. Aguri Suzuki looking fairly planted. So it's already turning into a very solid afternoon's racing, and Tommy Byrne is, well, he was caught out a little bit there by Aguri Suzuki. Suzuki taking that moment at the very last possible second to get up the inside of the Zach speed. That was brave, but fortunately Tommy Byrne saw that it was happening. Here's Ratzenberger, currently chasing after Tracy and Moreno. That's Lamborghini and Coloni in front of him. Still trying to work their way further forward as well. All sorts of rumours circulating Coloni that they could be bought out by the Alfa Romeo factory team again. And they will run the same colour scheme, but bring Alfa Romeo back to Grand Prix racing. Another name that hasn't been in Formula 1 for a few years now. Up the hill, and JJ Leto is going to watch the Ford go right round the outside. That's brave, even though they're lapping. And Chiva is trying to close up now on Suzuki, and there's a car in trouble in front. That's one of the Monteverdis. Leto is watching his teammate Capelli blow up. Now this is going to cause a little bit of a headache for somebody. Ivan Capelli really should be parking that. And I think that's costing Chiva any chance he might have had to go for 2nd place. Barbazza is going to struggle to get through that as well. Oh, look at this. This is getting a bit ridiculous now for Ivan Capelli. As Martini, Pierluigi Martini overshoots at the final bend. And that could have gone very badly wrong. So, a really interesting situation. And that's Capelli finally parking it out of the race. But that's definitely a big headache as far as the Monteverdi team are concerned. We're really hoping that this year was going to be a little bit better for them. It's certainly not going that way so far, is it? Down the stretch they come once again. The Columbia backed car of the Ford Eurobrand team. This new livery, this new look for the 2nd part of the season. Well, I said the 2nd part of the season. It's only the 4th race, but clearly the guys want to be a little bit more politically astute with no alcohol sponsorship. They would rather have a coffee brand, which of course comes from their driver Roberto Guerrero, who is a backed driver by that particular brand. Fabrizio Barbazza overshooting a little bit at the station hairpin. He's got to be careful because only a few seconds up the road from him is Guerrero. But he's fortunately, Barbazza, pretty safe, knowing that Alan McNish in the Real, who is the next genuine threat, is a good 13 seconds away. So Barbazza slips up the inside of the Zach speed and then very nearly goes off at the Nouvelle chicane. Barbazza really is charging to try and get clear and stay safe. So this is a tricky one. Johnny Herbert now diving up the inside, and that's an overtaking move on the inside of De Cesaris in the Coloni. So the Coloni looking very strong indeed. But Aguri Suzuki coming across the line to continue his form. And through he goes. Up to Casino Square once again, Aguri Suzuki. with 4 seconds clear now of Eddie Cheever in the Ford Eurobrin, but 34 seconds up the road. Here's Ukyo Katayama, just loving life in the lead here at Monaco, having a very sturdy effort of it as Nicola Larini is the man who is trying to get out of his way. Oh, Ukyo Katayama not really giving Nicola Larini a lot of options. Fortunately, the Italian stamps his foot on the brake pedal at the right moment. But now it's going to be all about these last 2 laps for the Honda pair of Katayama and Suzuki. Katayama deciding to go light with a tyre change and a fuel stop. Suzuki going all the way on 1 set of tyres and a full fuel tank, as we saw his teammate do earlier in the season. But they've obviously swapped roles this time. As long as the team gets in, I'm sure that's all they're really focusing on. But Eddie Cheever, 3rd position in the Columbia car. This is the Ford Eurobrin from Café de Colombia. And across the line they will come once again. And because we are now on lap 38 out of 39, everybody who is still running is going to be classified as a finisher, even if they don't make it to the finish. And that's going to give a lot of teams a little bit of a pat on the back in terms of finishing money. A couple of teams are really struggling at this stage of the season, particularly the AGS team, particularly Monteverdi as well. So any finish is worth some prize money. Roberto Guerrero now making the bid up the inside to dive in on the Monteverdi. And gets through. No issues there. He's got Tommy Byrne in front of him in the Zaxby. But Suzuki still having a very solid race of it. So he tries to make good use of the situations around him. And there's Roberto Guerrero. He's now lapping the Zaxby with the BMW engines, which gets out of the way. Suggestions that BMW could come into Formula One as a works team with the assistance of the Simtech operation. So that could be an interesting prospect. So in through the nose hairpin. Working their way forward. Still making a very solid race of this. We're on the last lap now. Aguri Suzuki picking his way through the traffic. He doesn't have to panic too much here. There is Eddie Cheever in the background. I've got a feeling that Cheever could have finished second had it not been for the traffic, but they caught in the wrong part of the race. Cheever had a great chance. I think Ivan Capelli is going to have some words with Eddie Cheever after this race, whether he likes it or not. But what a terrific battle it is going to be for the Honda team in the Monaco Grand Prix. They have once again split the strategy. One pitted, one didn't. And as a result, they're going to come through 1 and 2 yet again. And here comes Ukyo Katayama off the final corner. And the checkered flag is out. Ukyo Katayama is going to take it. He takes the win in the pre-qualifying race. A solid run for Ukyo Katayama as he comes through to take the victory in Monaco. That'll be very good indeed as far as he's concerned. That will really give him a boost in terms of his psychological upper hand over his competitors out there as well. Katayama winning on the streets of Monaco, even though it's a pre-qualifying race. A win at Monaco is still a win at Monaco. Cheever is going to be second. What's happened to Suzuki? What's happened to Suzuki on the final lap? Martini has slowed down on the final lap as well. Martini has stopped out on the circuit. And Suzuki appears to have dropped out of second place now as well. So big drama in the closing seconds. But Eddie Cheever has come through to second. Barbazza has come through to third. Suzuki has dropped to 4th place. I'm not sure what happened there to Aguri Suzuki, but he has dropped to 4th position. So look, there is the confirmation. Cheever's come through to second. Oh, there's damage to Suzuki's car. So Suzuki looks like he's tripped over a back marker on the final lap. So Aguri Suzuki will not be happy with that in the slightest. My goodness me. Drama in the closing stages then at Monaco as Katayama takes the win. Cheever does get second. Third goes the way of Barbazza, but look, that is a damaged front wing for Aguri Suzuki. Second position was pretty much guaranteed for him. And it's all fallen apart in the closing stages for the Japanese driver as he falls out of the top 3. So Katayama, Cheever, Barbazza, Honda, Ford and Jordan, they go through to the Grand Prix. Suzuki recovers to 4th in front of Guerrero and McNish. Then Johnny Herbert, Andrea De Cesaris, Ricard Rydell and Carl Wendlinger. Paul Tracy is 11th in front of Roberto Moreno. Ronan Ratzenberger drove beautifully for 13th place in the end ahead of Joachim Winkelhock. And then the drivers that were lapped. Nicola Larini and Eric Comas, Damon Hill and Hideki Noda. Tommy Byrne, JJ Leto and Pierluigi Martini, who is classified as a finisher. Capelli, Fittipaldi, Donnelly, Johansson and Aiello were all out of the race. A big drama for them. And the fastest lap of the race, of course, going the way of Ukko Katayama in front of Damon Hill in the Dallara Ferrari, Roberto Guerrero and Johnny Herbert. So the Dallaras were clearly quick. They were fast around the circuit. But interestingly, a really surprising situation and a tough scenario. They just haven't had the pace through racing to get up to the front. But there's some interesting developments there as we get ourselves ready for the 1991 Monaco Grand Prix. Well, a fascinating pre-qualifying race then here at Monaco, and it is going to be an interesting race ahead of us, as on the streets of Monte Carlo, there are so many teams that could give us a real surprising result. Let's see how this incredible Grand Prix plays out. It's Ayrton Senna and Alain Prost. The rivalry returns on the front row of the grid, but look how quick Senna is compared to everybody else. Thierry Boutsen in third position ahead of Nigel Mansell. Senna's pole position lap, though, the lap of the gods is what they're already referring to it as. Alessandro Nannini alongside Mika Häkkinen, the reigning champion. Gerhard Berger in the McLaren and Michael Schumacher in the second Ferrari. Then Riccardo Patrese in the Ligier alongside Derek Warwick in the Lotus. Nelson Piquet in the Arrows alongside Eddie Irvine. Then Jean Alesi in the Tyrrell alongside Martin Brundles-Benetton, Michele Alboreto and Heinz-Harald Frentzen. Stefano Modena and Mauricio Gugelmin, and then Eddie Cheever ahead of Aguri Suzuki, a better tactic in qualifying in the Grand Prix than in pre-quali. Marc Blundell alongside Roberto Guerrero, Ukko Katayama alongside Carl Wendlinger, and Barbazza and Fernandez finishing up the Monaco Grand Prix grid of 1991. So, Ayrton Senna starting from pole position then in the Williams Porsche. 0.7 of a second faster than Prost in the Brabham in qualifying here. Almost certainly this race is his to lose. Everybody else will be wanting a little bit more from this Monaco Grand Prix. And away we go! Great start from Senna. No problems at all. And a good start too from Boutsen. The Porsche Williams pair are going to go 1 and 2 as Warwick gets a good start in the Lotus as well. And that drops it, well, a good initial start, but he's not able to finish off the job. But Senna and Boutsen are 1 and 2 in the Porsche Williams pair. So no problems at all there. Prost in third position. Patrese makes a good start in the Ligier. That's put him up into fourth place. And then it's Nannini, Mansell, Berger, Warwick, Häkkinen and Irvine. Well, sensational stuff so far from the contenders. Up on the inside, Eddie Irvine just trying to pick his way through. Michael Schumacher battling with one of the Tyrrells. And I think that is Jean Alesi just losing a little bit of ground there, unfortunately. So big problems there, unfortunately, as they continue to race on. Now, there is a little bit of a development at the Red Bull Tyrrell team. Unfortunately, it is going to be an interesting one for Heinz-Harald Frentzen here this weekend. He's been given an ultimatum by the Red Bull Tyrrell team. If he does not place in the top 10, then he is going to miss the Mexican Grand Prix at the very least, to end the quote. So he's obviously, there's a lot of interesting management going on as well. There is an investigation going on, I'm told, about Michael Schumacher in the Ferrari, just charging his way up the inside of Jean Alesi and barging the Frenchman aside. And there's... Oh, I don't believe it! Straight into the first corner, Senna's got a problem! Senna's got a problem at turn 1, suspension failure for Senna! Oh my goodness, the race is over before the first lap is even really completed! So Boutsen takes over the lead. Lightning strikes twice in as many races for Senna. He does not get to win his Grand Prix that he has claimed as his own. Monaco is very much Senna territory. But unfortunately, he does not get to win. What a disaster for the Brazilian on the second lap of the race. He is out, and that means now that the Belgian, Thierry Boutsen, takes over the lead from Alain Prost and Riccardo Patrese. I cannot believe the bad luck of this situation for Ayrton Senna, who has now seen 30 points essentially disappear in the space of 2 races. He should be fighting for the lead of the championship, and it's just like 1990. Absolutely no luck at all for the Brazilian. He was in an unreliable McLaren last year. He switched to the Porsche Williams, and now he's in pretty much exactly the same situation. So Boutsen leads Prost and Patrese, then Nannini, Mansell, Berger, Hakkinen, Warwick, Irvine and Michael Schumacher. And I can tell you there is an investigation going on at Ferrari for Michael Schumacher's conduct on the first lap by nudging Alesi wide and costing the Frenchman about 3 places. So that is being investigated. But they do say about Michael Schumacher that he is quite ruthless as a racing driver. We haven't really seen too much of that over his first year and a half. But certainly the drivers have made it very clear you don't get into a fist fight with Michael Schumacher on the track because he will not leave you any room at all. So that's going to be an interesting subject matter. But certainly for the Porsche Williams team, that's a real headache. Just one car left on lap 3. Thierry Boutsen leads the way, just as he did for the last few hundred meters of the San Marino Grand Prix. Now he's got to shake off the 3 times world champion Alain Prost, who won the title in 85, 86 and 89. And here at Monaco, he has made it absolutely clear, if I'm going to win any Grand Prix this year, I'm going to win at Monaco. He's certainly in a good position to do so, currently sat behind Thierry Boutsen. As we look at Riccardo Patrese in the Ligier coming towards us, the Italian, in a very solid race of it in 3rd position as he goes up the hill, trying to shake off Nannini and Mansell, McLaren and Ferrari. And how about that? In the top 5 places, there are 5 different teams. Williams, Brabham, Ligier, McLaren and Ferrari in the top 5 positions in this motor race so far. But the Monaco Grand Prix definitely already very dramatic in the early stages as Alain Prost in the Brabham chases after Thierry Boutsen in the Williams. So they did say at Brabham this was going to take time for us to get competitive again. However, it certainly doesn't seem to have taken as much time as people were starting to think it would. Certainly Alain Prost is having a very sturdy day of it out there in 2nd position in the Brabham Ilmore. Riccardo Patrese is dropping back a little bit in 3rd place into the clutches of Nannini and Mansell. There is the Ligier Renault. Just having a very tidy race of it in 3rd position so far, but he does seem to be holding up the rest of the field. I wonder if he's going a little bit further into the race in terms of fuel strategy. Question is, that didn't work in pre-qualifying. Would it work in the Grand Prix? We go out of turn 1, up the hill. Still some good battles to come in this Grand Prix. It's still very early doors indeed. As we look at Alain Prost for the Brabham team, working his magic for the Brains Brabham Ilmore team. Very heavily influenced by their Welsh team boss Ewan Gale, as Derek Warwick now tucks himself up behind the reigning world champion in the 2nd of the Brabhams. And is Mika Hakkinen of Finland in front. The bizarre rookie champion from last year. Many people obviously still stating that while Mika Hakkinen is a new and surprising and refreshing world champion, a lot of people very clear about the fact that had Ayrton Senna finished where he was supposed to in the Australian Grand Prix, he would have been champion in 1990. He had done all the hard work, he had made it very clear that he was going to be in the podium positions in Australia, which is where he was needing to be world champion. However, he didn't make it. In fact, none of the title contenders made it in that 1990 Australian Grand Prix to the finish. So it finished as a stalemate. Thierry Boutsen now leads here at Monaco in the Porsche Williams. Will Thierry Boutsen hold on to the victory with a little bit more pressure on him this time than he had last time out at Imola? The Belgian still doing a fair job, and it shows that the loyalty that Frank Williams and Scott Woodward have really shown to their boy Thierry Boutsen is really paying off, because a lot of people wrote him off at the start of the year. They said he wasn't motivated, he wasn't really getting up to speed. But he said, just wait till the Porsche upgrade comes in. We've done a lot of work over the testing, over the season, pre-season. now we're going to make it happen. There's Stefano Modena, who is doing a reasonable job in the Lola. So Stefano Modena with the Ferrari engines in the back of the MasterCard Lola for 1991. Still trying to work his way further forward. But there's still points to be had on offer. Any car that makes it into the top 10 is eligible for points. Thierry Boutsen crosses the line to lead at Monaco on lap 7 out of 78. A long race this. Looks like there's going to be an awful lot of activity in it before the victory is finally declared. So a sensational run from our drivers. Here at the Monaco Grand Prix, it was always going to be dramatic. It was always going to be tough to predict who's going to come out on top. There's Alain Prost, second position in the Brabham. Ahead of Riccardo Patrese in the Ligier, who of course won the crazy race around these streets in 1982. The race that nobody wanted to win. Here's Nelson Piquet. All sorts of rumours surrounding Nelson Piquet. There's already talk that he's pretty much disillusioned with Grand Prix racing in 1991. And that's Jean Alesi having a bit of a moment out of the final corner as he tries to shake off Nelson Piquet. Instead of the final corner before the tunnel, I should say. And Jean Alesi in the Red Bull Tyrrell, still working his magic. Behind is Nelson Piquet. That's Piquet's graphic we're looking at rather than Jean Alesi's. Not entirely sure why we're looking at that graphic, but anyway, that's what the directors decided to give us. Patrese, Nannini, Mansell. Berger in 6th position in the second of the McLarens. Here they come, out of the first corner and up the climb once again. There's a lot of pressure riding on Riccardo Patrese's shoulders now. They went with him because he's got good experience, an amazing experience by all accounts, but here is Alessandro Nannini in the McLaren, really starting to put pressure on Riccardo Patrese now to try and get that Ligier up the order again. But Boutsen just keeping the Porsche Williams honest up front. Prost is staying there in the Brabham in second. Just staying as close to him as he can. He's got a lot of racing still to come here at Monaco. You never know what's going to happen around these streets. So Thierry Boutsen just keeping it together. Riccardo Patrese third. Then Nannini, Mansell, Berger, Hakkinen, Warwick, Irvine and Schumacher. And there is still discussion, apparently. The incident involving Schumacher and Alesi on the opening lap will be investigated after the race. So that is the outcome of that particular situation. So Michael Schumacher will be investigated post-race for that rather aggressive manoeuvre on Jean Alesi. And here is Alain Prost in the Brabham, going up the hill once again, trying to close in on the Belgian out front with Thierry Boutsen. 9, already effectively 1/8 of the way through this Grand Prix, or 1/10 of the way through this Grand Prix, I should really say. And here is the McLaren of Gerhard Berger, struggling to shake off the attentions of the world champion from last year, Mika Hakkinen, in the second of the Brabhams. But Gerhard Berger, still a very prominent figure, waiting to command the McLaren troops forward for a championship assault in 1991. So Gerhard Berger still reeling in his opponents, trying to make good use of the situation around. A tough situation. But still, the battle rages. Thierry Boutsen, the Williams Porsche, running a great and solid race up in the lead. His teammate Ayrton Senna was in front and stretching away and pulling away, but unfortunately he pushed it just a little too hard on the first lap. And the suspension collapsed. So a very embarrassing end for Ayrton Senna in the Porsche Williams. It's going to be a really interesting situation as the battle continues. There is Thierry Boutsen. There is Alain Prost, I should say, as we watch Nigel Mansell now in the Ferrari. Nigel Mansell still trying to work his magic and get himself a decent finishing position for the first time this year with a Ferrari. He's had the speed, he hasn't had any of the luck at all. So Nigel Mansell could really do with finding that opportunity. And working his way forward. There is Alain Prost in the Brabham. So still the battle rages, but Thierry Boutsen and Alain Prost are first and second positions. Patrese in third. There is Alessandro Nannini in the McLaren. So Nannini just trying to get himself into that podium position in the McLaren Honda. And Nannini highly motivated to try and work his way further forward here at Monaco. Currently number 4 is in P4. So we'll have to see if this is going to continue in the right frame of mind. Here's Patrese in the Ligier Renault, up the hill, up towards Casino Square once again. And there's Frentzen, and Frentzen is having an issue. Frentzen in the Tyrrell is pulling off. Well, Heinz-Harald Frentzen could well be having a very short conversation with team boss Sam Hall, because Heinz-Harald Frentzen needed to produce a top 10 result in Monaco to salvage his place in the team for at least a couple more races, and I'm afraid that looks like it's game over for Heinz-Harald Frentzen, who has been quite decidedly off the pace compared to his teammate Jean Alesi of late. And that's very unfortunate. But I'm afraid that is very much game over for the German. So Patrese, third position now, in front of Nannini and Mansell. Gerhard Berger ahead of Hakkinen, Warwick, Irvine and Schumacher, then Brundle, Alboreto and Alesi from Piquet, and Stefano Modena in the Lola, currently in 15th. None of the pre-qualifying teams are in the top half of the grid. Ukko Katayama, of course, taking the win in the pre-qualifier. And there is Ukko Katayama. His first pre-qualifying win, actually, last time out. He's in 17th, behind one of the Fords, and that is going to be Chiva, who is currently in front of Mark Blundell in the Benetton. Now, the Benetton team have been very tactical with their new team boss, Lucy Ball-Wood, who has made it very clear that she wants to make the Benetton team the most reliable and dependable car on the grid first, and then he's going to continue. These two drivers, Brundle and Blundell, I should say, they are going to continue, I should say, to make the car go faster and faster with the assistance of Lucy Ball-Wood, who is absolutely determined. Oh, and that's Wendlinger. Wendlinger is dropping down. So Wendlinger in the Jordan Ferrari is going to be the next retirement on the list. That's unfortunate for the Austrian, but then Monaco has not really been his playground so far this weekend. So Karl Wendlinger, I'm afraid to say, going no further here. And there is the Lotus of Derek Warwick, the Castrol Lotus Renault team. The team's starting to look a little bit stronger than they have of late. They had some very difficult times in the latter stage of the 80s, and then obviously, I think Ayrton Senna leaving the team to move to McLaren really hurt the Lotus team quite hard. As Alain Prost in the Brabham continues to run in P2, about 3 seconds back from Gerhard Berger. 3 seconds back, I should say, from Thierry Boutsen. The Williams driver still having a very solid race of it up front. No major concerns as far as they are concerned. Not the best choice of groups of words in history there, Sanson. Try that one a bit later, I imagine. But Patrese still running third. Solid race for the Ligier. This is all going to come down to the pit stops, isn't it? This is where things are really going to shake up. But Boutsen and Prost have now pulled 11 seconds clear of Riccardo Patrese, who's clearly going a little bit further into the race. So there could be some very interesting and exciting times ahead for Riccardo Patrese if he keeps this car going. And there's Mark Blundell in the Benetton. Not the easiest of race seasons for the Benetton team so far. But they have got a potentially quick car underneath them when they get the Porsche engine upgrade that the Williams team have. The likes of Brundle and Blundell are going to be very hard to knock back. Meanwhile, Patrese up the hill. Nannini, Mansell and Berger still making good inroads into the Ligier, just trying to put him under pressure. But it's the lack of overtaking opportunities really here at Monaco that can really come back to bite you. And so you've got to be very focused, you've got to be very careful about how this all starts to play on the mind of the drivers around you. But there's Derek Warwick again in the Lotus, trying to hustle Hakkinen and trying to shake off Eddie Irvine, while Michael Schumacher, 10th position in the Ferrari. Not a lot the young German can do about this at the moment. And I think he's just trying to keep himself under the radar for the moment after his first lap incident with Jean Alesi that's really knocked the Frenchman out of the points. And I know that Jean Alesi can be very angry at the best of times. All sorts of rumours surrounding him at the moment. There's discussion about whether Alesi could even team up with Schumacher at Ferrari in 1992. The rumours going around the paddock are that Nigel Mansell would leave the team, and essentially we would then see a really exciting battle between Schumacher and Alesi at the Ferrari team. Well, that's going to be an interesting one if they're locking horns with each other out there on the course. But this man out front, no issues. Thierry Boutsen from Belgium in the Porsche Williams. If Senna can't get the job done in 1991, you can rely and depend on Thierry Boutsen, it seems. And he is now starting, almost by accident, to be mounting a serious championship attack. Certainly not the Williams that I think a lot of people expected to mount a serious title attack. But it's certainly looking to go that way. So, things continue. On board with Warwick in the Lotus once more. Still having a very comfortable race of it. As he goes through the tunnel, he's not having a hard time of it at all there in the points. Can't quite get through past Berger or Hakkinen, admittedly, but considering where the Lotus has struggled to get into the points so far this season, it's nice that Warwick finds himself in the points on merit at the moment. All sorts of incredible stories continuing to develop at the Lotus team. There was even a suggestion a few weeks ago that Derek Warwick would actually be partnered in the team by his younger brother Paul, and it could be the Lotus Warwick frenzy out on the circuit. Michele Alboreto had quite a few things to say about that, and eventually Alboreto was allowed to stay on. But a fascinating situation. Now, if we had championship points for pre-qualifying, Katayama would actually be leading those standings on 51 points, ahead of Aguri Suzuki and Eddie Chiva, who would both be on 33. Wendlinger on 24, Cesaris on 23, and Damon Hill on 14. So, and he would have the same amount of points as Moreno, and I think Eric Barnard, I do believe, on 13, McNish on 11, and Rydell and Herbert would both be on 8. So Alain Prost in the Brabham, still keeping himself within 5 seconds of Thierry Boutsen as we approach the first pit stops of the Monaco Grand Prix 1991. Oh my goodness, there's already been a statement released by the Tyrrell team. Tyrrell can confirm that young Rubens Barrichello, who has been racing in British F3 this year, will contest the next 3 races in place of Heinz-Harald Frentzen. This will give him an adequate chance to prove his ability in the car. Now, Rubens Barrichello did win the opening race of the British Formula 3 Championship. That's a big step up for the Brazilian. That's a massive jump forward for effectively a teenager in Grand Prix racing. I'm thinking he's going to become the second youngest Grand Prix driver in history after Mike Thackwell. So that is absolutely ruthless from team boss Sam Hall, who will obviously be under the command of Ken Tyrrell. But obviously the team manager is Ken Tyrrell, the team principal is Sam Hall, so he makes the calls, and that's absolutely cutthroat. But that is Grand Prix racing. So Rubens Barrichello will step into the Tyrrell next time out at Mexico. What a place for the Brazilian to make his debut as well. That's not going to be easy. Riccardo Patrese down to the chicane, working his way forward, and then through he comes again. The next 2 races, of course, are going to be Mexico and Canada. So Rubens Barrichello at least gets to stay in the Americas to make his Grand Prix debut. What an opportunity for the Brazilian that's going to be. So, up through the climb up towards Casino Square again comes Thierry Boutsen in the Porsche Williams. A very solid race so far for him. He hasn't really put a wheel wrong at any point in these first 17 laps. He's on lap 18 now, and Alain Prost is staying within 5 seconds all the time. Thierry Boutsen must know he makes one single solitary mistake, and that is going to be Alain Prost right there for the taking. Patrese under even more pressure in 3rd position. Here he is in the Ligier, currently sat in 3rd position. If he blinks in the wrong direction, or if they mess up the strategy, And all of a sudden, Nannini, Mansell, Berger, Hakkinen, Warwick, Irvine and Schumacher are going to be all over the Ligier. So this is going to be fascinating. Oh, and there's a very interesting chatter that's been within seconds almost of that press statement at Tyrrell. Dropping Frentzen. Arrows have announced that Adrian Fernandez is being dropped. And that's while he's still in the car, I should point out. That is incredibly draconian from Ed Spencer and the Arrows team as Barbatza drops out of the race. So that's both Jordans, I'm afraid, now gone. So both Jordans are now gone. But Frentzen is apparently going to get the call up to go to the Arrows team in place of Adrian Fernandez. Wow, fascinating stuff. And Tyrrell can confirm the appointment. Oh, that's Aguri Suzuki parking it. Aguri Suzuki in the Honda. So clearly there was more damage to the Honda than we first thought after his incident on the last lap of pre-quali. So Aguri Suzuki is now out of the race in the Honda. They're all starting to drop out of the race now. But yeah, apparently Ed Spencer, team principal of the Arrows team, has confirmed that Frentzen is going to be joining the Arrows team. Oh well, interestingly, Tyrrell states that Frentzen will join Arrows for France and Great Britain, not for Mexico and Canada. Very interesting. So, very interesting. Adrian will be dispatched to do some testing duties. So, apparently Frentzen won't be released to the Arrows team until the French Grand Prix. So, Frentzen is basically on gardening leave for the next two races as far as Tyrrell are concerned, but he will happily send Frentzen to the Arrows team from the French Grand Prix onwards. This is the kind of stuff that happens in the middle of a race. Magnificent stuff. I mean, when we get these messages come through to our printer here in the box, I'll tell you what, these managers really are, playing musical chairs. Wow. Well, Sam Hall has actually pointed out that there could be a mix-up in communication between the two teams. I'm not surprised, considering it's happening in the middle of a race. And of all the races for it to happen, the Monaco Grand Prix, you'd have thought that Sam Hall and Ed Spencer would be too busy schmoozing with sponsors rather than dealing in the business of mucking about managing a motor racing team at Monaco while the race is still going on. You've got to feel for Adrian Fernandez in the middle of all of this, because he's still out there. He has no idea that this deal is being done while he's on track. And I've got a feeling that the Mexican's not going to take too kindly to it either. Well, politics, intrigue, drama. Thy name is Formula One. Thy name is Grand Prix racing, isn't it? So Boutsen, 4.2 ahead of Alain Prost. Prost still very much a factor in the victory for this Grand Prix. Patrese still third. Look at this train that he's building. Patrese, Nannini, Mansell, Berger, Hakkinen, Warwick. And then about a second back, you've got Irvine and Schumacher in the Ligier and the Ferrari. Brundle and the Benetton's not far away from the points either. He's only a second back from Schumacher. Now, Benetton's getting better all the time. They did say he was going to be taken. Oh, apparently, Ed Spencer has confirmed that Adrian Fernandez is going to be informed after the race. So, a very difficult situation for Adrian Fernandez. This could end up being quite a dramatic post-race more than anything else, because we know that Schumacher is obviously under investigation from Malaysia, and we're being told that Ayrton Senna has pretty much done a carbon copy of his 1988 outburst. And the Williams team, apparently one of the members of the squad has handed me a note to say he hasn't gone back to the team at any point. He is he's basically in exactly the same frame of mind that he was 3 years ago when the race was over. So a sensational situation currently brewing here at Monaco. We're on lap 22 of 78, and this man, Alain Prost, is trying to chase down Thierry Boutsen in the Porsche Williams. So, a very interesting situation for the contenders. We're on board with Michael Schumacher, racing under a cloud at the moment after his lap 1 antics with Jean Alesi, who is currently in 13th and would have been in the top 10 had it not been for Schumacher's antics. Apparently that incident is going to be investigated after the race. So through the field comes. Monaco always brings a little bit of a surprise to the table. And Alain Prost is really enjoying being in second place in the Brabham. They've pulled a good 17 seconds clear of everybody else as Modena in the Lola runs in 15th place. A good 10 seconds back from Nelson Piquet in the Arrows. There's a heck of a lot of interesting scenarios playing out here at Monaco. With so many talents. Boutsen, Prost, Patrese, Nannini, Mansell. Here they come towards us. And of course, the next big event in the motor racing calendar that everybody's going to be preparing to watch is going to be the Indianapolis 500. Oh, that's Nannini. Just locks up there. First big mistake in the train, and this could be the opportunity for Mansell. Mansell seizes the chance, and he's going to dive in on the inside. No prisoners for Nigel Mansell in the Ferrari. He gets through. So Nigel Mansell takes over 4th position in the Ferrari. Great run there from the Brummy Meister. They call him Il Leone in the Tifosi at Ferrari. He's very, very popular with the fans, and it's great to see him finally getting an opportunity to move forward. So a big mistake from Alessandro Nannini, and Mansell takes advantage of that, moves up into 4th place in the Ferrari behind Boutsen, Prost and Patrese. So now the McLarens are dueling wheel to wheel. That's going to be Nannini and Berger. You can bet that Berger's going to get very frustrated sat behind his Italian teammate for longer than he feels necessary to. So there is Prost in the Brabham, still working his magic. We're beyond 1/4 distance of the Grand Prix now. But there have been some big moments in this race already. Ayrton Senna parking it at Saint-Devote on the 2nd lap of the race while leading and already pulling away. A broken suspension, clearly just so determined to win the Monaco Grand Prix. He pushed the car too hard on the opening lap, and the car broke underneath him. It's this man, his teammate, Thierry Boutsen, who has been given license to lead out in front and dominate. Although it's not much of a domination because Alain Prost in the Brabham is still only 5 seconds back from him. The two Fords are having a nice duel. This is Roberto Guerrero and Eddie Cheever. Can't catch up to anybody else, so may as well duel each other, and that's Cheever making light work of his teammate, Roberto Guerrero. So through they go. But we saw Heinz-Harald Frentzen retiring from the race, and the draconian attitude of the Tyrrell team principal, Sam Hall, dropping Frentzen on the spot. So clearly they feel that there's something to do with Frentzen's performance that means he wasn't able to get through to the end of the race, not just mechanical problems with the car. Maybe they feel he's the reason for the mechanical issue with the car, but he's been dropped by the team. And incredibly, Rubens Barrichello is going to get his call up from the next Grand Prix, which is the Mexican Grand Prix on Mexico City's circuit, which comes just before the Canadian Grand Prix on the circuit Gilles Villeneuve. So through they go. This is the arrows of Nelson. Oh no, sorry, this is Adrian Fernandez, the other interesting story in the ointment, because the Arrows team have confirmed that Frentzen is apparently going to join their team. But we don't know exactly when he's going to join the team, because initially it was reported to us that it would be from the very next race in Mexico, but apparently a deal has been agreed for the French and British Grand Prix only. So, well, this is going to be fascinating. Boutsen leads, Prost is in second place, then Patrese in front of Nigel Mansell now in the Ferrari, who managed to slip past the McLaren of Alessandro Nannini. This is a fascinating duel. So far, only Ferrari and Williams have won races this year. Michael Schumacher winning the first 2 races of the season in the Ferrari. And the third race going the way of Thierry Boutsen, although it should have been Ayrton Senna by all rights. But you do get the sense that Schumacher, feeling the frustration from his first 2 races, winning, and then suddenly at Imola and here at Monaco, he's been off the pace. And that little bit of veracity and youth coming forward, and now he's under investigation from the officials for taking out Jean Alesi on the first lap of the race, Alesi losing 3 places in the process. So that's definitely going to be investigated, I think, post-race. We are approaching 1/3 distance of this Grand Prix, which is at the completion of the next lap. Sorry, the completion of this lap, I should say. So Alain Prost leading. Jean Alesi is the first one to blink. So Jean Alesi decides to come into the pits first. That's absolutely tactical. Oh, Berger slowing. Gerhard Berger slowing in the McLaren. So it looks as though Berger is going no further, and he's been hit. He's been hit by Irvine. Well, Berger, the car coming to a stop in the middle of the road. So Gerhard Berger, the marshal's quickly running out to him. But I'm afraid that's Gerhard Berger in the McLaren out of the Monaco Grand Prix, so he will not continue further. And that really has given the rest of the field a bit of a headache. Certainly for Irvine, Schumacher and Brundle. They're now in the points, but they've fallen off the back of Derek Warwick's Lotus. Big issue there for Berger. And Eddie Irvine having absolutely nowhere to go but into the back of Berger's McLaren. That could involve a bit of scrutiny a little later, but really, you have to argue, what could Gerhard Berger have done about it? If the car has seized up on him, if he can't go any further, then that's that. Here's Alboreto in the Lotus. He's got Nelson Piquet all over the back of him. So Nelson Piquet trying to work his way forward into the points now that he's sensed that, well, there's a McLaren out of the race just in front of me, so I can work my way forward. But still, the battles rage on here in Monaco. And we are 1/3 distance completed. And, oh, big smoke, big smoke. Is that Fernandez? I think that's Fernandez in the arrows. So, I think Adrian Fernandez is about to learn some very bad news when he gets back to the pits. Because obviously it's been debated live on television, and I'm afraid the Mexican Adrian Fernandez is about to find that he doesn't quite have the race drive he thought he had. So, Riccardo Patrese, 3rd position in the Ligier at this precise moment in time. So still a very interesting and intriguing battle continuing on here. So, Patrese leads the way in the battle for the podium. 21 seconds back now from Boutsen and Prost. It definitely looks like it's either going to be a Williams or a Brabham that takes the win. But Nigel Mansell really feels like he's got a chance of a podium at least here. Sat behind Patrese in the Ligier. So still, this Monaco Grand Prix has plenty of chapters to write. As into the pits comes Schumacher, and in comes Alboreto. So Schumacher in the Ferrari and Alboreto in the Lotus, both come into pit road. So they are going to drop behind Modena, behind Alesi and behind Blundell. They might not drop behind Blundell actually. The Benetton has lost quite a lot of time over the grand scheme of things. So I think Schumacher will actually rejoin in 13th and Alboreto will rejoin in 14th place, just ahead of the Benetton of Mark Blundell. So Boutsen, Prost, Patrese, Mansell, Nannini and Hakkinen continue flying through, hoping for more good battles up the road into the chicane, and Alain Prost still putting on a good show here in 2nd. Well, Fernandez has apparently already been told his fate by a team representative who must have been spotting for the team down in the tunnel. Either that or they told him over team radio just as he got out of the car, which is just about the worst timing in history to tell a racing driver. And apparently Ed Spencer will be speaking to the press before immediately flying back. Well, that's a very interesting scenario. So Derek Warwick is in the pits. So Warwick in the Lotus makes his way into pit road. Oh, and we're hearing that we're hearing that Adrian Fernandez has actually said he's done with F1. Well, that's a very off-the-record comment, but that's come straight to us. One of our reporters has sent us the message very quickly. Apparently Fernandez is walking away from the sport. He doesn't want any more, so he's going to IndyCar, which is, of course, where he was essentially going initially. Well, Fernandez has said he's going to find a deal in IndyCar. That's I'm not sure those comments would have been vetted by the Arrows team. I think they would have liked him to have been a little bit more candid and a little bit more clean about the discussion. But that's not always the way in Grand Prix racing. And here's Jean Alesi dueling away now with Stefano Modena. Remember that Modena hasn't pitted and Alesi has. Alesi's going to dive! Beautiful! Lovely overtake from Jean Alesi. That is the kind of racing driver that Jean Alesi is. So, excellent work and excellent stuff so far then from the Frenchman. Trying to get himself back into a competitive position after his earlier shenanigans on lap 1 with Michael Schumacher in the Ferrari. meeting each other a few times in the world of Grand Prix racing, those two. Both young, motivated, and very tempestuous. Here's Thierry Boutsen. And Thierry Boutsen is slowing! Boutsen is slowing! I don't believe it! It looks like both of the Williams Porsches are going to hit trouble here. Because that is the Porsche Williams of Thierry Boutsen going very slowly indeed, and Alain Prost is going to overtake him. Prost in the Brabham is going to take the lead of the Monaco Grand Prix, and he does! Porsche Williams is not going to win the Monaco Grand Prix the way things are currently playing out, as Boutsen is slowing. So Boutsen is trying to make his way back to the pits. Is this an electrical issue? No, he's parking it! He's done! Thierry Boutsen is out of the Monaco Grand Prix from the lead. Both Porsche Williams cars are out at Monaco from first position. Neither car even makes it half distance on the streets of Monaco. Well, you've got a feel for Frank Williams, for Patrick Head, for Scott Woodward, for the whole team as Mika Häkkinen comes into the pits. But that is game over at Porsche Williams. The fastest car is also not quite the most reliable. And that is absolute gold dust for Alain Prost and the Brabham team. I'm trying to remember when Brabham's last race victory was prior to 1990, because all of a sudden their fortunes in the last 18 months have turned around. They garnered the world champion Mika Häkkinen last year. Alain Prost switched to the team mid-season after a falling out with Ferrari. And this is going to give Alain Prost so much motivation. That's Mauricio Gugelmin slowing down. And so the Brazilian appears to be out of this race now as well for the Lola team. So I'm afraid that is game over for Mauricio Gugelmin. And he is out at Sandoval. It seems that Brazilians all want to park at turn 1. Well, very tough situation then. So, through the chicane goes the other Lola. Gugelmin out, but Modena continuing on. But 15 seconds now is the gap between Prost and Patrese. So Alain Prost leads. Patresi's up to second. So there's a Ferrari on the podium, by the way things are currently looking. So that is great news for the Scuderia under the circumstances. There's still a long way to go. Still a lot to play out here. And here's Warwick making his bid on the inside of Stefano Modena, and he's through. Good move from Derek Warwick. That's a nice overtake from the Lotus as he gets his way forward now up into 8th position. So an excellent run from Derek Warwick. And Alain Prost is leading the Monaco Grand Prix. He's been here before as a race winner. He has won the Monaco Grand Prix before. He's won it a few times actually. He won it in 84, in 88. I think he won it in 85 as well. So he is a 3-time winner around the streets of Monaco. He would dearly love to add another one, and that really would get his 1991 championship aspirations on track. Certainly give Brabham something to smile about as well. Been a tricky start to the season for them, but ever since their upgrades after the first 2 races in America and Brazil, Brabham really seem to have come back into their stride again. And there is Nigel Mansell in the Ferrari, the team that won the first 2 races of the year in America and Brazil. But Nigel Mansell, hopefully he's going to get his chance to get the car in the points and on the podium. And that will definitely be a sigh of relief for Nigel Mansell, who apparently is already in talks with the Newman Haas team in IndyCar for 1992. There's even discussions about him joining the World Sports Car team. But Nelson Piquet is already on the verge of signing a deal, we're told, for sports car racing and maybe even IndyCar as well next year. So fascinating. All the gossip. All seems to come to a head here in Monaco. Don't forget that the next race in the 1991 season is not actually in Grand Prix racing. It is the Indianapolis 500. And that's going to be one heck of a race. And of course, you do get the odd surprise as to who's going to show up on the starting grid for that one. So we'll have to see who turns up and who puts on a show. Here's Michael Schumacher making his bid up the inside, and he gets the job done. Nails Stefano Modena, and so the Ferrari gets up into 9th place. And Modena really seems to be struggling now. I wonder if he's left his pit stop a little bit too late as Brundle comes into the pits in the Benetton. So Brundle from P7. Again, that's a very reliable car, the Benetton, and as everybody else drops out, they're going to end up scoring points regardless. It's definitely going to help the Benetton team out. So still the competitors rage on. Still, we have plenty of excitement. Still, they are going strong. So through they come again. And an excellent run. So still they continue. And a very exciting run continues to progress. So now the competitors continue to rage on. Riccardo Patrese in front of Nigel Mansell. Oh, that's a bit of a lock-up from Eddie Cheever. Eddie Cheever having a little bit of an issue there at the hairpin at Lowe's. So that could have been a little bit awkward. So still the battles rage on. So the contenders continue in fine style. But Alain Prost leads the way here in Monaco. And still, they rage on. Prost leads Patrese in the Ligier by 16.5 seconds. Mansell in the Ferrari is in third. Alessandro Nannini in the McLaren is in fourth place. In fifth position, we've barely spoken about this, but in fifth place now is Eddie Irvine in the Ligier, the second Ligier. So there's going to be some big points for the team from France if they keep things going. Alesi is there in sixth position, and then Warwick in seventh place ahead of Schumacher in the Ferrari, and then Hakkinen in the Brabham ahead of the second Lotus of Michele Alboreto. So some good moves. Prost out in front of Patrese, then Mansell, Nannini and Irvine. That's the top five. Piquet and Brundle are just outside the top 10. For those who are just joining us, we're almost at the half-distance point of the 1991 Monaco Grand Prix. Senna retired from the lead with a broken suspension, pushing hard to try and build up a gap. Clearly pushed too hard, and the left front suspension collapsed on the Williams. Thierry Boutsen, his teammate, took over the lead, and then something has cost him dear as well. He's also out of the race. We've lost Berger from the fray. We've also lost Gugelmin in the Lola. We lost both of the Jordans, and we've also lost Ukyo Katayama. No, sorry, not Ukyo Katayama. We lost Aguri Suzuki in the Honda. So Katayama is currently in 15th position behind Stefano Modena in the Lola. And we found out that Adrian Fernandez, who's parked the Arrows and retired, has also been dropped from his team, as has Frentzen from the Red Bull Tyrrell, which also pulled out. And Jean Alesi diving through. Jean Alesi moves up into 5th position in the Red Bull Tyrrell. Jean Alesi is on a charge here. This is excellent news for the Frenchman. Jean Alesi putting on a terrific comeback drive. He's not that far away from Mansell and Nannini in the 3rd and 4th place battle. So this is really starting to come good for Jean Alesi. There he is. So Jean Alesi still has a great chance here of a top 3 finish for the Red Bull Tyrrell team. Putting in a giant killing effort as Stefano Modena is going wheel to wheel there with Cheever. Cheever is holding on to 13th position at the moment. But Eddie Cheever will obviously have a little bit of work to do to keep his man at bay as Alain Prost leads Patrese, Mansell, Nannini and Alesi. And here's Mika Hakkinen. Hakkinen now trying to get around the outside of the Ford Eurobrun. That's got to be Roberto Guerrero, who's being lapped at the moment. So Guerrero obviously having his problems. But Nigel Mansell trying to chase down Riccardo Patrese with Nannini in tow. There is Alesi in 5th position. The Red Bull Tyrrell's coming on strong now. But that's because he made an earlier pit stop. He was the first one to pit, if you remember. So Jean Alesi has actually pulled a bit of a strategic masterclass here on his opponents. He's making up for lost time earlier. Still Stefano Modena versus Eddie Cheever. Patrese in the Ligier. Mansell and Nannini, but Alesi is going strong here in 5th position. But because he pitted earlier, he's on a 2-stop strategy compared to everybody else on a 1-stop strategy. up in front of him. Here's Nannini. Nannini pits in. So that promotes Alesi to 4th. Now, if Prost, Patrese and Mansell are all on one-stop strategies, surely they're going to come into the pits again, or for the first time, I should say, and that's going to promote Alesi to the lead of the Monaco Grand Prix. Then Mansell, all over the back of Patrese. Ferrari versus Ligier. There was discussion at one point that these two could have wound up as teammates at the Williams team. Mansell was talking to Williams about a departure for 1991 after 2 tough years at Ferrari. He decided to stick it out with the Tifosi. He said, I love being a Ferrari driver. I could still be champion. I still want to be champion, and I still think I've got it in me. But I need the right team. And into the pits comes Prost, the race leader. Alain Prost in the Brabham is now pit lane bound, so he comes in. And that's obviously going to be an important one as far as the battle for the victory is concerned. So Prost comes in. Patrese will be second, but he will go up into the lead unless he chooses to come into the pits on this lap as well. He doesn't. So, they go. Look at Alesi! He is caught right up to the back of Mansell in the Ferrari. Alesi is absolutely charging around Monaco. Jean Alesi is in a great potential to win this Grand Prix. So here is Ukyo Katayama in the Honda, trying to get away from Marc Blundell. Close up on Stefano Modena. But we are on the half-distance lap, so surely Patrese and Mansell are going to come into the pits on this lap. Prost rejoins behind Eddie Irvine. But Alesi's really got to step up the attack and pull away from Prost if he can. If Prost hits trouble, the favourite for this win is now suddenly looking likely to be Red Bull Tyrrell's Jean Alesi. Fascinating. So the contenders for the victory are all in the same piece of racetrack. Alesi's got to build a gap over Prost to have a chance of doing it, but he's giving everything. So still they battle on. And through they come again. And that's Roberto Guerrero moving out of the way. Locking up into the hairpin. Lotus goes through. Roberto Guerrero has to get out of the way. He's really struggling today, is the Colombian. Now who's he getting out of the way of? Well, Patrese comes into the pits, and he's going to drop quite a long way back. Patrese rejoins at about 11th position behind Brundle. That's because everybody's really tight together, so Patrese suddenly losing ground here. And Irvine is actually causing a bit of a headache for Alain Prost, because Irvine is on a one-stop strategy. But still the battles rage here at Monaco. Look at Alesi all over the back of Nigel Mansell's Ferrari. Into the chicane. And here's Prost. He's going for broke on Irvine. So Prost moves up into 3rd position. He gets the job done. So an excellent performance from Alain Prost so far, but Nigel Mansell in the Ferrari has got Jean Alesi in the Tyrrell all over the back of him. Jean Alesi, look at it. Alesi has worked so hard. Mansell's pulling in. Here we go. Mansell's going to take the pit stop. He's gone a long way in as Nigel Mansell, but he does not have to stop again. But that means that the Red Bull Tyrrell leads the Monaco Grand Prix. Jean Alesi is 3.9 seconds now ahead of his countryman Alain Prost. And it's a French 1-2 in Monaco. Warwick is up to 3rd, Schumacher's up to 4th, Hakkinen is up to 5th, and Alboretto's up to 6th. Now these are the drivers that pitted earlier, but they have got a second stop to come. Prost has rejoined 2nd though, so Alesi's really got to step on this. So let's see how it all plays out. Still the battles continue. Alesi is not pulling away from Alain Prost, I should point out. He is losing about 0.2 of a second per sector to him. So it could be a false dawn here for the Red Bull Tyrrell team, but they'll certainly be very happy about the way things are currently going for Jean Alesi. And this is the difference, I suppose, between Jean Alesi and Frentzen. Alesi's got himself into this situation, made the most of a tough race. He dropped as far as 13th. Just imagine how high up he could be if Schumacher had not taken him out in the first lap. But it's interesting that Alesi has managed to bounce back from that and actually get ahead of Schumacher at the pit stops. Now Mansell trying to dive his way through past Guerrero and trying not to lose too much time to the men around him. But Mansell's actually beaten Patrese out of the pits. That's significant. Mansell in the Ferrari's actually leapfrogged ahead of Patrese. So that really is worth keeping an eye on. So Nigel Mansell has actually beaten Patrese out of the pit lane. That's crucial. Schumacher and Häkkinen are having a great little battle. Ferrari versus Brabham. But what a terrific duel this is currently set to be. As Alesi is 2.3 now ahead of Prost. Prost really is raining down on Alesi's parade. So the Tyrrell is leading, but I don't think he's going to get to lead the Grand Prix for long. Here he is. Prost is just behind him now. Less than 2 seconds back. Prost really is hammering into Alesi's advantage. And that is, of course, because Prost is on fresh tyres. Alesi is not. He's had quite a few laps on this compound now. He will have fresher tyres towards the end because he's going to be on a 2-stop strategy. So who gets the best of it? That's going to be the key. Prost, though, is certainly making this race come back to him. He doesn't even need to pass Jean Alesi. He just needs to sit behind him until Alesi makes his pit stop. That's all he's got to do to win this Grand Prix. But Mansell, for my money, is going to move up to second here. Patrese is going to move up to third. And I think Irvine may even end up in the top 5. Because he's got a lot of drivers around him, ahead of him, that are going to make another pit stop. So Irvine may end up as high as, well, he could even get to 4th, never mind 5th. But Nigel Mansell, second position in the Ferrari so far, is looking likely for him, a net P2. So Warwick in the Lotus, trying to get away from Schumacher and Häkkinen. Here they come, Ferrari and Brabham. Still trying to score as many points as they can. And still trying to work their way forward. A terrific duel in the offing for these two. But Derek Warwick would really dearly love a Lotus podium if he can have one. But Irvine is now going wheel to wheel with one of the Eurobrun Fords. That's got to be Guerrero, I think. He's having a bit of a nightmare race, actually, the Colombian. Very different compared to the pre-quali. Oh, look, Jean Alesi is only a second ahead of Alain Prost. I think he's pushed the car a little bit too hard, trying to get into a race-winning position. Now he's burned the tyres out. And Alain Prost on a fresher set, despite having a heavier fuel load than Jean Alesi, he's got a fresher set of tyres, and that's what counts around Monaco. Warwick's only a few seconds down the road from them, but Prost is the one who's really eating into Jean Alesi's advantage. There is the Frenchman, catching his compatriot. So Alain Prost in the Brabham. Car number 2 is P2. But for how much longer? Certainly Prost is having a good run. A solid afternoon's work here as they go through the tunnel. And up to the Nouvelle chicane once more. Through they go. Back on the pace again. Into the left-hander, up towards the swimming pool. Derek Warwick still running a solid third place in the Lotus. Schumacher and Häkkinen, then Alboreto, Piquet, Brundle, Mansell and Patrese. But Mansell and Patrese, for my money, I think are still effectively second and third, as they are going to have most of the cars in front of them come in for a second pit stop. The only one that isn't is going to be Alain Prost, who went the whole way on a one-stop strategy. A very firm strategy there. Here's Mark Blundell in the Benetton, trying to close up on Ukyo Katayama in the Honda. And they fly through once again, down to the chicane. Blundell still having a very tasty race of it in the Benetton. There could be some decent points in the offing later, especially if the attrition rate continues as it has been so far here in Monaco. It's not been the squeakiest of races in terms of cleanliness. Jean Alesi leads the Monaco Grand Prix. Is that going to be a move from Prost? I thought they might have dived in up the inside in the chicane, because Prost is now glued to the rear wing of Jean Alesi's Red Bull Tyrrell. Alesi's really doing his best to hang on here. This is not easy now. He knows how much pressure is going to be on him as they continue to make good work of things. But Derek Warwick is there in third place behind Alesi and Prost. And the gap comes down to 4.3, so Alesi, who still has another pit stop to go, is going to charge forward as much as he possibly can in the latter stages of the race, but I'm afraid the win is not as likely as he was hoping it would be. Schumacher and Häkkinen are hoping to salvage some points from this race. And I reckon we're going to end up with Alesi in P5 after the pit stops. Warwick will probably be P6 ahead of Schumacher, Häkkinen, Alboreto and Piquet. Brundle just outside the top 10. But there are still going to be a few other drivers pushing. There are still going to be a few other drivers making mistakes and having mechanical problems before the end of this Monaco Grand Prix, I'm sure. At 46 out of 78, still a good 32 laps to go at the end of this one. A lot can change in Grand Prix racing. A lot can change at Monaco. But look at Prost. He's doing exactly what he needs to do. Just sitting behind Jean Alesi, letting him do all the hard work. He doesn't even need to overtake him as Chiva locks up in the Eurobrun. So still continuing on. Ford package, clearly a lot faster than it used to be. And Derek Warwick is in the pits in the Lotus. Here we go, the second round of pit stops already. So Warwick and Schumacher trying to leapfrog past their opponents. Now this could really backfire against Jean Alesi. If Warwick and Schumacher get out with clear track, then they could actually leapfrog past the Frenchman as well. So Alesi has got to respond to this fairly quickly as we watch the Honda of Ukyo Katayama running in 15th. So Warwick has got out still ahead of Schumacher, as we assumed he would. The gap is only 1.7 between those two. But the big question is Warwick going to beat Alesi in this pit stop routine? Here's Mika Häkkinen in the Brabham, currently in third, but he's got a pit stop to come, as have Alboreto, Piquet and Brundle. Mansell is now right on the tail of the Apple Benetton of Martin Brundle. So still a very tough race in the offing here at Monaco. But Jean Alesi is only a quarter of a second ahead of Alain Prost. And surely Alesi has got to respond to the fact that Warwick and Schumacher have made earlier pit stops than the Tyrrell. As Ukyo Katayama is slowing. Katayama in the second Honda is slowing. It looks as though they're not going any further. And Häkkinen responds to the challenge from Warwick and Schumacher. So Häkkinen responds. He comes into the pits. But Ukyo Katayama joins his teammate Oguri Suzuki on the sidelines. There are no points for Honda today. And no points for Jordan either. So two of the teams that were involved in pre-qualifying are out of the race already. Only the Eurobruns, the Fords, are still going as Brundle comes into the pits as well. And drops to 11th behind Schumacher. So, here are the leaders. Alesi versus Prost again. Prost is right up tight behind Jean Alesi's Tyrrell. But the Honda has good straight line speed. Is this going to be the chance for Alain Prost? And he takes the lead at Monaco. Alain Prost goes into the lead in the 1991 Monaco Grand Prix. Takes it away from Jean Alesi. And so with 31 laps to go, it's pretty perfect as far as Alain Prost is concerned. He doesn't need to break a sweat now. Whereas Warwick, Häkkinen and Schumacher find themselves battling away. Oh no, wait, this is actually Alboreto, Piquet and Mansell. But interestingly, Häkkinen has leapfrogged past Schumacher. That's how important his pit stop managed to turn out to be. He's managed to get ahead of Schumacher. He was behind him before, and now he's leapfrogged him. So there's Marc Blundell in the Benetton. Lap 48 is completed. 30 to go now here at Monaco. And that will just whiz by. Down to the chicane comes Marc Blundell. Still trying to get that Benetton up into the points. But there's a lot of tough races ahead of us. Now, when is Alesi going to pit? Because this is actually quite critical now. Jean Alesi, having lost the lead, will have lost momentum. And I've got a feeling that if he doesn't pit soon, he's going to drop behind Warwick, Häkkinen and Schumacher. He really has to be careful about when he makes his pit stop now. He will obviously have fresher tyres than all three of them, but overtaking opportunities at Monaco are few and far between. So what is Jean Alesi going to do? From a man who for a couple of laps looked like he might have a chance to win, all of a sudden Problem is, Alesi just pushed himself a little bit too hard, too soon. Now, what's Alesi doing? Is he staying out? Or is he pitting? I didn't see where he went. He is staying out on the circuit. Now, I think that's not the right move, personally. I think Alesi needs to keep himself in the frame with Warwick, Hakkinen and Schumacher. There's only 25 seconds back to Alain Prost in the lead. Oh, and Alboreto is coming into the pits. There we go. So Alboreto is pitting. So Alboreto is going to try and get out in front of Martin Brundle and Stefano Modena in the Lola. And I think Alesi may have left this too late for the pit stop. Got to think tactically here. If you're losing time anyway, you don't want to lose too much. Otherwise, Warwick, Hakkinen, Schumacher and Brundle, well, not so much Brundle, I would think, actually, going to cause a problem. Now, Nelson Piquet, third position. Whoa, Alain Prost very nearly threw away the lead of the Grand Prix there. He was lapping one of the Eurobruns. I think it was Eddie Cheever he was lapping. But he very nearly cost himself a place. Now, this is the battle for third. Two old adversaries, two old teammates at Williams back in the 80s. Nelson Piquet versus Nigel Mansell. Two drivers who do not get on well at all. So you can bet that Piquet isn't going to give an inch. And Alesi finally pits. There we go. Alesi finally makes his way into the pits in second place. Now, the big question is going to be, where does he get out in relation to Warwick, Hakkinen and Schumacher? I think he's left this too late. I think he's going to fall behind Schumacher. Any chance of a top 5 finish could be about to crumble for the Tyrrell team. Brundle, meanwhile, is working his way past Roberto Guerrero. And there go Warwick, Hakkinen and Schumacher past Alesi out of the pits. I thought it was too late. Alesi is going to end up behind Schumacher, and there you go. That's how costly the incident on the first lap was between Schumacher and Alesi, because Alesi has just ended up falling back behind the Ferrari again in the long run. So you can bet that Sam Hall is going to have a word about this incident on the first lap between Schumacher and Alesi again. This isn't done yet. Stefano Modena in the Lola, running through in 14th position. Still trying his best to become a factor in this Grand Prix. Still a long way to go for the Italian, but obviously still a lot that needs to play out. So still the contenders race on. Here's Alain Prost in the Brabham, looking good. And Michele Alboreto going wheel to wheel there and getting past Roberto Guerrero, who is having a absolute nightmare of a Monaco Grand Prix, it has to be said, for the poor Colombian. But Prost going strong in the lead. 21 seconds now in front of Piquet and Mansell. But surely Nelson Piquet in his arrows has got to make a pit stop soon, and I think he's left this later than anybody. Oh, and Brundle locks up. Now I'm afraid Nelson Piquet and the Arrows team really have cost themselves here, because Piquet has stayed out longer than anybody else. And looking at the queuing drivers behind them, you've got Mansell, Patrese, Irvine, Warwick, Hakkinen, Schumacher and Alesi. And even Brundle is only another 13 seconds back from Alesi, so I think Piquet is going to drop out of the points here behind Alboreto, possibly even behind Nannini. Now, how has Nannini ended up all the way back in 12th position in the McLaren? Not entirely sure what's happened to Alessandro Nannini in this Grand Prix, but he's clearly had some kind of mechanical difficulty and has fallen out of the points. He had some problems earlier on, we noticed, but Nannini's really struggled to keep that car on the straight and narrow. I think he's had an early visit to the pits and then had to come back in again on a technical problem. Now here's Piquet, here we go. Piquet comes in, but I'm afraid the Brazilian, the 3 times world champion, is going to drop out of the points. Mansell's through, Patrese's through, Irvine's through in 4th, then Warwick, Hakkinen, Schumacher, Alesi, and I think Brundle and Alboreto are going to sweep by as well. You can't afford to leave the last pit stop too late, because everybody just pushes each other forward. They go together, and I'm afraid Piquet is going to drop out of the points here. Just another crushing blow in Nelson Piquet's rather embarrassing season as Schumacher tries to make the bid on the inside of Hakkinen. Mika Hakkinen is having none of it. Schumacher in the Ferrari getting frustrated, sat there in 7th place. Doesn't want to be there anymore. He's got Jean Alesi breathing down his neck. But look at this for Nigel Mansell. He's been released now. 2nd position is his. And the Ferrari is looking good to take this to the flag if he can keep it going. And that's going to be a very useful 12 points for the Ferrari in second position if Nigel Mansell can hold this and bring it home. It's going to be a really solid battle for him as he continues in fine style. So still the contenders battle and rage on. But now they're going to continue. Nannini in front of the Eurobrun. Patrese having a solid race of it. Up the hill. Patrese in front of Irvine, his teammate. Then Warwick in the Lotus. Häkkinen in 6th. Schumacher is 7th in front of Alesi and Brundle. Alboreto P10. Piquet in 11th place. Then Nannini, Modena, Blundell, Cheever. Still a good race for this battle. Oh, Schumacher almost ploughs straight into the back of the Brabham. Ay, ay, ay. That could have been nasty. A really solid race continuing here. As the contenders stream through. Alboreto locking up in the Lotus. He doesn't want to throw away the point. Piquet is just behind him in 11th place. And then Alessandro Nannini down in 12th position. Not quite sure what's befallen McLaren today. This is a really solid race run from Mansell in 2nd and Patrese in 3rd. Well, this is a very tough race to the flag now for everybody. Patrese in 3rd position, Irvine, Warwick, Häkkinen, Schumacher, Alesi. All 6 drivers hoping for a podium finish at the end of this Grand Prix. But there's a long way still to go. Another 24 laps of this race. Still to determine who is going to get the Grand Prix victory on the streets of Monaco. And still they rumble on. Still good battles everywhere you look. But Alain Prost is the only one not really in a battle. He's keeping it nice and tidy out front. And Alesi's going to make his bid. Dives through. Takes 2 men. Oh my goodness. Alesi gets Schumacher and Häkkinen in one fell swoop. That is a monstrous overtake from Jean Alesi. He doesn't just get one, he gets both of them. Now that is the kind of move that everybody is going to take note of. Alesi storms through on Häkkinen and Schumacher. Now that is sweet, sweet revenge as far as the Frenchman is concerned. Dives through on Schumacher. He left it so late that he had to go for Häkkinen as well and just decided to tidy up the move. That is the move of the season at Monaco of all places. Alesi goes from 8th to 6th. What an impressive overtake from Jean Alesi. Not just getting 1, but getting 2. My goodness me. Jean Alesi, Banzai, here in Monaco. Oh, they really do have somebody special at Red Bull Tyrrell, don't they? Jean Alesi finding the gap and absolutely stacking it into the braking zone. Here's Alain Prost. He leads the Monaco Grand Prix of 1991. Was taking it nice and steady out front, the Frenchman, the 3 times world champion. And who's that making a bid up the inside? That's Häkkinen trying to go for Alesi to take him back. It's not going to happen. Häkkinen tried to do the same move on Jean Alesi. I think you'll find that's my move, says the Frenchman. Wow. That is an absolutely extraordinary overtake from Jean Alesi. I'm still reeling from it. But Prost is 21 seconds clear of Nigel Mansell in the Ferrari, and a further 4 ahead of Riccardo Patrese in the Ligier. Ligier about to come away with an amazing result here, 3rd and 4th if they can hold this together. And that is definitely going to give them and their team boss Will Knight plenty to shout about heading to Mexico. Here's Nigel Mansell, 2nd place in the Scuderia Ferrari, exactly where he wanted to be as well. In the top 3, hunting for victories. He deserves to be a world champion as Nigel Mansell. He's never had the tools, never had the opportunity. Who knows, maybe, just maybe, he could become the first Ferrari world champion since 1979 when the South African Jody Scheckter got the job done. Riccardo Patrese still out in front of Irvine. And then Warwick, big lunge at the inside from further back. Was that Häkkinen trying to make his bid again? Or Mansell locking up in the Lowe's hairpin. Alesi still in front of Häkkinen and Schumacher, so any attempts from Mika Häkkinen falling on deaf ears at the moment. Keeping things nice and tidy. No major concerns, no major problems at the moment either. So still they duel away. A terrific race brewing and a really exceptional duel. So still the competition rising strong. There's Michael Schumacher trying to catch back up to Mika Häkkinen. I think the Ferrari's got an issue or two here. Schumacher just cannot quite seem to stay on the same pace as Alesi and Häkkinen. And the Ferrari is actually dropping back from the train. He pitted a little too early now by all accounts. So maybe Alesi, by pitting later, is just able to take those tyres a little bit further into the race to give himself the best chance of making positions. But Alesi's already starting to think about Derek Warwick in the Lotus. And then, of course, he's got two Ligiers. Could Alesi actually find himself on the podium? That really would be an amazing challenge, an amazing charge forward. So Patrese in front of Irvine, then Warwick, then Alesi, Häkkinen, Schumacher, Brundle, Alboreto, Piquet, Nannini and Modena. Lundell and Shiva still having a solid race of it at the moment. So down to the braking zone for the chicane. And now Schumacher getting back on terms with the reigning world champion, Mika Häkkinen of Finland. He's had a very quiet start to the season, it has to be said. But he is the reigning world champion after all. Oh, and that's Modena. Modena's out of the race. That's one of the Lolas gone. That's the second Lola gone, in fact. Well, you've got to feel for Tom Cairns, team principal, along with Eric Broadley in the team. But I'm afraid that's both Lolas now out of this race. That's going to promote Blundell to 13th. That's going to promote Shiva to 14th. And I think Guerrero up to 15th. I think that's now 15 drivers still running in this race. I don't think anybody else is still circulating. So 20 laps to go. And Patrese hanging on to third position. The Italian still wants the podium. Still working hard. And Schumacher dives in on the inside of Häkkinen. He takes the place now away from the Brabham. So Schumacher bounces back. And he dives through then on Mika Häkkinen. He makes the overtake up into 7th position. That's a good recovery from Schumacher. Häkkinen now struggling a little bit, it seems, in the Brabham. Well, the tide turns a little bit here for the Finn. So now Michael Schumacher has his sights firmly set on the Red Bull Tyrrell of Jean Alesi. He wants revenge for that cheeky move into Mirabeau a few laps ago. So now Schumacher makes it very clear, I'm going to make the moves now. Alain Prost is just controlling yet another Monaco Grand Prix. Looking good for another win. He threw one away, don't forget, in 1982 with just a handful of laps to go in the Renault. But ever since then, any time he's had a chance to win Monaco, Alain Prost doesn't let it slip through his fingers. But you have to say, had Senna not pushed quite so hard on the first lap, even Prost would have really struggled to take on Ayrton Senna in the Porsche Williams today. But this is a tough race on gearboxes, a tough race on suspensions. And the Porsche Williams was vulnerable today. Neither car managing to finish, both drivers retiring from the lead. As Mika Häkkinen hoping for a few more than 3 points from this Grand Prix. Still hustling Michael Schumacher. So a very interesting situation for the contenders. They still give us plenty to do, still give us plenty to talk about. But Prost is your leader, Mansell in second, Patrese in third, and he is ahead of this incredible train of cars. So Mansell is closing up on Shiva to lap him. There's the Fords running at the very back of the field, 14th and 15th. I don't think there's anybody behind them now. So I think we've only got 15 cars still running in the Monaco Grand Prix of 1991 out of the 26 cars that started. Both Williams out, both Jordans out, both Hondas out. As Shiva gets out of the way of Nigel Mansell in the Ferrari, running in second place. Mansell goes the long way round. Oh, Shiva not doing Nigel Mansell any favours at all, and Mansell actually shakes his fist at Eddie Cheever as he goes by. Come on, man, what are you playing at? So Cheever does eventually come through. Oh, and Schumacher and Alesi are dueling. I think Schumacher's made the move on Alesi. Now, we didn't see what happened, but again, Schumacher has managed to get the overtaking move done on Jean Alesi in the Tyrrell. So, Jean Alesi down to 8th position again. In fact, Häkkinen's got through. Schumacher's got through. So Häkkinen's up to 6th. Schumacher's into 7th. Alesi is down into 8th position. What's happened? Unfortunately, we missed it. So Häkkinen's now 6th. Schumacher 7th. Alesi is down in 8th place and has lost a couple of tenths of a second to them. So there has been a proper shuffle of the deck. Better not to remind Chris Cavani, the team principal at Ferrari, that Mansell was leading in Monaco in 1990, last year, when he retired from the lead. Well, it's a proper shuffle of the deck here in Monaco still. As Patrese down to Alesi. 3rd down to 8th. Is still a very tight battle indeed. Still unclear as to who's going to be duelling away for the podiums and the points. Prost leads Mansell and Patrese. Here's the battle, and again a big dive, and Häkkinen's gone into the wall. Schumacher dives in on Häkkinen, and Häkkinen rubbed the wall there by the look of it. So Mika Häkkinen actually nudges the wall. Schumacher has done this now first to Alesi and then to Häkkinen. Incredibly, Häkkinen and Alesi are still going, but Schumacher absolutely resolute. Well, this is a very different side to Michael Schumacher we're seeing. We've seen the fast driver up front in command of the Grand Prix, but now we're seeing a completely different side to Michael Schumacher. He is ruthless. This is quite an incredible situation, and we've got to talk about the drivers who are currently in the 5th position ahead of Schumacher, Prost is your leader, Mansell in 2nd place, Patrese in 3rd. Eddie Irvine, the young Northern Irishman, is currently in 4th position in the Ligier and actually looking like he could take on his teammate for 3rd position. So the Ligiers are having a terrific Monaco Grand Prix. 5th place is Derek Warwick in the Lotus. That will do them so much good. Nannini is really struggling for pace now in the McLaren. They've dropped a long way back. And Alesi's going to make the bid on the inside of Häkkinen. And he's through. Alesi gets Häkkinen. So Alesi makes another big overtake into Mirabeau. And this time he takes on the move and gets past the world champion. So Alesi is up to 7th position once again. But that braking zone into Mirabeau, it's just all 3 drivers exchanging great race battles at the moment. Really do get the sense that Schumacher, Häkkinen and Alesi are going to be the 3 next big stars of this sport. Häkkinen already a world champion. Alesi was the vice champion last year. Schumacher won both the first races of 91. These 3 drivers could well be the future of the sport for the next few years. And there is Alessandro Nannini in the McLaren. What a disappointment this race has turned out to be. Alesi dives again for Schumacher and takes him. Alesi takes him in the final couple of corners. There he is. So Alesi's got past Schumacher on the run out of the Rascasse into the Virage Antoni Nogues. Alesi is pulling off some magic moves. And through the tunnel comes Alain Prost once again on lap 64 out of 78. 15 laps to go. And still they duel away. Alain Prost in the Brabham, having a terrific race. And still just taking it nicely in his stride, just giving it everything he's got to the bitter end. But this is an absolute stormer of a Monaco Grand Prix for 3rd position. Patrese, Irvine, Warwick, Alesi, Schumacher, Häkkinen, and now Brundle. Brundle has caught them all. So Martin Brundle in the Benetton is suddenly a part of this, and then Alboreto and Piquet have joined the race as well. So this is 3rd. All the way down to 11th, there are just 6 seconds in it. This is an amazing charge for the rest of the points. And Riccardo Patrese, with his experience of Monaco, having won here, of course, 9 years ago, is just hanging on to 3rd place. He's going to hold up the whole field if he can keep it there. Irvine in 4th, Warwick in 5th, Alesi, Schumacher, Häkkinen, Brundle, Alboreto and Piquet giving chase. And then Nannini, who's had all sorts of mechanical issues in the McLaren. Blundell 13th, and then Chiva and Guerrero, the 2 Fords, run by the Eurobrun squad. So here is Patrese, hanging on to 3rd position for dear life. Look at the train that is stacking up. Well, Brundle and Alboreto have dropped off the back of it a little bit now. But they're still only about 4 seconds away. And then Piquet down in 11th. Can't make the overtake on Alboreto in the second of the two Lotuses. But this is going to be a big point score for Lotus, a big point score for Ligier, a big point score for Ferrari, and a big point score for Brabham too. This is all going beautifully well. Mansell is keeping it nicely in his stride in second position. He's going to come through to go into lap 66. Prost is already on it. 13 laps remaining in the 1991 Monaco Grand Prix. So Alain Prost in the Brabham, Nigel Mansell in the Ferrari, and then Riccardo Patrese in the Ligier. What a podium that's going to be if it stays this way. No change for first, no change for second. In fact, Alain Prost has just lapped Mark Blundell in the Benetton. So now it all comes down to how long can Riccardo Patrese hang on? Can he hang on to the finish? In third position ahead of Irvine and Warwick. Lacey, Schumacher and Hakkinen are throwing 7 bells at each other every time they get near each other. Hakkinen not quite close enough to do the unthinkable move on Schumacher into the Mirabeau. But still a very solid race transpiring here at Monaco. Come out of the tunnel, this time by. Hakkinen still lined up behind Schumacher. But Patrese has got enough grunt in that Renault engine in the Ligier to just hold off all the drivers behind him on the straights. As he parks the car in the apexes, it's going to be a very strong run. And Alain Prost is on course for win number 5 in Monaco. A new record is getting closer. He will equal... Well, no, he's not quite going to equal Graham Hill, is he? He's almost there. Yeah, he is going to equal Graham Hill with this victory. So Alain Prost is about to become the joint most successful winner of the Monaco Grand Prix if he just keeps it going for another 12 laps. And the Brabham Milmore driver is holding on. If you're Ewan Gale, you do not have any fingernails left. But the whole team will be praying. A win at Monaco is such a big deal, and to a team that was really struggling a couple of seasons ago, wasn't even on the grid for the 1988 season, I think it was. And the Brabham team have worked their way back in just a couple of seasons to win races and then win the World Championship last year with Mika Hakkinen, and now brought Alain Prost in. They don't have the biggest budget in the world, but they do have an amazing heartbeat for racing. And here, Alain Prost at Monaco. Well, he is the master. He is the modern master of Monaco, about to equal the great Graham Hill, who won the Monaco Grand Prix 5 times across the 1960s. And Alain Prost is looking to equal that here today with a win in the 1991 Monaco Grand Prix. Down to the Lowe's hairpin. Getting close behind one of the Eurobruns again. That's got to be Guerrero to lap it for the second time, I would say. But Schumacher still in front of Hakkinen, but they've fallen off the back of the Lacey, and they're actually falling into the clutches of Brundle and Alboreto in the Benetton and the Lotus. And there's Piquet in the Arrows behind as well. So third, all the way down to 11th, is covered by less than 6 seconds now. In fact, it's actually less than 5 seconds between them all. These are all the points-paying positions at Monaco. Alain Prost, 22 seconds in the lead. As Prost tries to go for it, and Guerrero nearly takes him out. Goodness me, that would have been a dramatic way for Alain Prost's 5th Monaco Grand Prix win to go up in flames. But Alain Prost holds on, and he crosses the line, and he now has 10 laps to go in the 1991 Monaco Grand Prix. He is about to become the most successful man in history at Monaco, levelling the great Graham Hill. Hill, of course, won Monaco, Indianapolis and Le Mans. Many call him the greatest ever for that particular reason. There is Nigel Mansell, up the top of the crest, in through Casino Square. And Nigel Mansell doing a great job of things at the moment, keeping it together in second position at Monaco. In the Ferrari. This will really kickstart his season now as well, if he can hold this together. He could do with the points, he could do with the motivational kick as well, to show everybody I'm not just going to park this car at the side of the road week in, week out. I'm going to race and I'm going to win. But Alain Prost doing a fine job of leading the Monaco Grand Prix in 1991. He's going to complete lap 69 out of 78. 9 laps remain. And Alain Prost is just dancing his way through the streets of Monaco today. He's never been quite the fastest driver out there on the course. The Porsche Williams cars were definitely quicker. He's been far more delicate than either driver in the Williams cars. He's kept this car alive throughout. Never pushing the Brabham faster than he needs to. Prost has looked slow by comparison today to the two Williams cars. But he's just driven within his means. He's never pushed harder than he's had to. He's got 22 seconds now on Mansell. Here comes the train. Here comes the cavalry, led by Patrese, then Irvine, Warwick, Alesi, Schumacher, Hakkinen, Brundle, Alboreto and Piquet. All the way to 11th from 3rd. Somebody is going to have to dream big if they want to take this podium away from Patrese. So, up to the Nouvelle Chicane. And Alain Prost is pulling away from this man, Nigel Mansell. Former teammates at Ferrari, of course. Nigel Mansell looking for second place here in the Ferrari compared to his French teammate Alain Prost, who really has made the Brabham team his own since he came into it. Rumours that the world champion Mika Hakkinen isn't particularly pleased with that scenario. But there's all sorts of rumours flying around the Grand Prix grid at the moment. It's this time of year when people start to get a little bit itchy, a little bit intrigued about what could happen. So up the top of the crest comes Riccardo Patrese, currently running in 3rd position. Irvine is 4th, Warwick is in 5th, Alesi in 6th position from Schumacher, Hakkinen, Brundle, Alboreto and Piquet. This long cavalry, this long train of cars, still trying to bang in some points, still trying to get themselves further up the field. And Alain Prost is having a terrific race of it. Still doing a grand job, still working very hard indeed as he continues on his plight. And Alain Prost up to the final couple of corners of the lap. Powers down the straight again. Only 7 more laps of this, Alain, and you are the most successful driver at Monaco in history. Alongside Graham Hill. It's quite an achievement. Up to Casino Square. Through the left, through the right, and down the drop to Mirabeau, where we've seen so many incredible moves, none the least of which is that absolutely banzai manoeuvre from Jean Alesi to get past Schumacher and Hakkinen in one fell swoop to get to 6th position. But they're pretty much in stalemate mode now, aren't they? Irvine can't quite get close enough to Patrese. Warwick can't quite get close enough to Irvine. This has shades of Spain 1981 at Jarama when Gilles Villeneuve led them home with a huge train of cars brewing behind him, and nobody could get by because Gilles Villeneuve kept the Ferrari just wide enough to hold them off and hold them all at bay to the checkered flag. This has shades of Jarama 1981 written all over it. There is Alain Prost in the Brabham. He leads in front of Mansell, Patrese, Irvine and Warwick. But Alesi is not far behind in P6. Schumacher, Hakkinen, Brundle and Alboreto. More points for Benetton, more points for Lotus, more points for Brabham and Ferrari, and a very decent solid amount of points for Tyrrell as well, if things carry on as they are. And the thing I like about this particular Grand Prix is, yes, it's had its drama, yes, it's had its controversy, but it has been a pure race. Prost has pretty much controlled it, but there have been some great battles further back. And at Monaco, no doubt. They say you can't overtake at Monaco. Tell that to Alesi. Tell that to Hakkinen. Tell that to Schumacher. All 3 of them have pulled off some very solid moves here in the streets of Monaco. For 3 different teams too. For Tyrrell, for Ferrari and for Brabham. So there is Nigel Mansell, 2nd position at the moment as we look back to Riccardo Patrese. 3rd position for the Ligier. You've got to give Patrese a lot of credit here. Yes, he's got a massive amount of experience, but there's a lot of pressure riding on his shoulders right now. So many young talents trying to get past him. And Riccardo Patrese is not budging, not conceding, not giving this up at all. And still they run. Still the battles progress as Alain Prost comes out of the final turn and he completes lap 73 out of 78. 5 to go. This is where people start to get a little bit stressed because you know that you haven't got many laps. Don't forget, just last time at Imola in the San Marino Grand Prix, Ayrton Senna had done it all. He'd been perfect at Imola. And then the engine blew on the very last lap. He couldn't bring the car to the finish. It was too fast a circuit, put too much pressure and strain on the engine. Had it been Monaco, I think he probably would have made it home, ironically enough. So a win at Monaco slips through the fingers of Ayrton Senna. But it looks like it's going to go the way of Alain Prost, with Nigel Mansell getting a very deserving second place for the Ferrari team out of all of this hard work. But Alain Prost still leads the way in the Brabham, looking good. Just needs to keep it together for these last few laps, these last few corners. No major concerns for Alain Prost now. 21 seconds over Nigel Mansell, just coast it home for these last 4 laps essentially. Comes out of the virage and turning nose and goes down the main straight once again. And the brains, Brabham Ilmore of car number 2, Alain Prost, is just 4 laps away from becoming the greatest ever racing driver in Monaco, alongside Graham Hill. Mansell along the main straight once again. Nigel Mansell is about to score his best ever result in Monaco. He led last year and retired. He led in 1984 and retired. He's not going to get the win today unless something befalls Prost. But Nigel Mansell still showing what he can do. Still showing that he is a thoroughbred, bulldog breed. He wants to win Grand Prix in 1991. He's in the fight, he's in the hunt. Patrese and Irvine for the Ligier team really have pulled a fast one here over their opponents. Been very shrewd operators in terms of their tactics. And it's going to be a 3rd and 4th for Ligier. Team principal Will Knight is going to think Christmas has come unbelievably early. So some fascinating challenges for the contenders ahead. And here's Mansell in the Ferrari, still just hoping that something goes wrong for the Brabham in front, because you never know. It's Grand Prix racing, it's not over till it's over. Prost goes up the hill once again. So through they come again, and down the drop. Now Nelson Piquet is parking it. He wasn't going to score points anyway, unfortunately, but I'm afraid Nelson Piquet is not going to get to the end of the Monaco Grand Prix. He will still be classified as a finisher, but I'm afraid it's game over for Nelson Piquet in Monaco 1991. And based on the rumours we're seeing, that might be the last time you ever see Nelson Piquet race around the streets of Monaco. What a disappointing end for the 3-time world champion in the Adidas Arrows BMW. There are the list of retirements: Modena, Katayama, Gugelmin, Boutsen, Fernandez, Berger, Suzuki, Barbazza, Wendlinger, Frentzen and Senna. So much drama across the Monaco Grand Prix. Who would have thought that the pole sitter and the dominant force of the first lap, Ayrton Senna, would be out on just lap 2. Catastrophic for the Porsche Williams team and for the Brazilian. He hasn't been seen since, incidentally. He has disappeared, run away and hide by all accounts. And Michele Alboreto in the Lotus is slowing. Alboreto is parking it. This is a disaster for the Lotus team. Gearbox problems puts Michele Alboreto out of the Grand Prix now. So the final point is going to go the way of McLaren. And there goes Alessandro Nannini. He passes the scene. And so Nannini gets himself up into the points. So Alboreto and Piquet, both with mechanical failures in the closing stages, that promotes McLaren into the points. Well, a big shock for Piquet and Alboreto in the closing couple of laps of the race to not go the distance. And so Nannini goes up to 10th. Blundell will be promoted to 11th. Shiva will be promoted to 12th. Not entirely sure if Roberto Guerrero will actually go up to 13th because it depends on how many laps he completes. Might not get it till the very end. But Alain Prost is about to begin the final lap of the 1991 Monaco Grand Prix. That just shows you, doesn't it? It's never over until it's over. Here comes Prost. The final lap begins here in Monaco. And at the end of this one, the Frenchman is going to be not only a 3-time world champion, but a 5-time Monaco Grand Prix winner. What a display it has been from the Monaco maestro. He won in 84, he won in 85, he won in 86, he won in 88. And here he is coming through to win in 91. A 5th Monaco Grand Prix victory for Alain Prost. Just extraordinary. As Mansell laps Roberto Guerrero for the last time. And this has just been an absolute fairy tale for the Brains Brabham Ilmore team. They are getting very excited on the pit wall. When was the last time a Brabham won at Monaco? Absolutely phenomenal. And a great result for Alain Prost. Nigel Mansell will get a great second place. The Ligiers will still hang on for 3rd and 4th. But here comes Alain Prost. He comes out of the final turn. It's been a masterclass drive from the 3 times world champion. And for the 5th time, Alain Prost wins the Monaco Grand Prix. He gives Brabham their first win of 1991. An ecstatic Alain Prost. The 1991 championship fight begins here for the 3-time world champion. Game on. And Nigel Mansell will come through finally for the result he deserves. 2nd place at Monaco. His best ever result on the streets of Monaco. Nigel Mansell thoroughly deserving that. And here comes Riccardo Patrese, the man who won here in 1982. And he leads the Ligier Cavalry home. 3rd and 4th for them. Irvine in a brilliant 4th place. Warwick is 5th. Alesi in a spectacular 6th. Schumacher, Hakkinen, Brundle and Nannini in the points. What a Monaco Grand Prix it has been. A great race, a terrific battle. It was always going to be dramatic, it was always going to be tough. But Alain Prost comes through to showcase his skills for the 5th time in Monaco. 84, 85, 86, 88 and now 91. 5 wins on the streets of Monaco for Alain Prost. Nigel Mansell 2nd place from Riccardo Patrese and Eddie Irvine. Derek Warwick ahead of Jean Alesi, then Michael Schumacher, Mika Hakkinen, Martin Brundle and Alessandro Nannini in the points. Blundell, Chiva and Guerrero were the only other finishers. Alboreto and Piquet are still classified as finishers despite not bringing it home. Modena, Katayama, Gujamin, Boutsen, Fernandez, Berger, Suzuki, Barbazza, Wendlinger, Frentzen and Senna all race retirements here on the streets of Monaco, mainly with gearbox failures. But what an unbelievable race. Michael Schumacher, the fastest man around the streets of Monaco, ahead of Brundle, Alesi, Hakkinen and Boutsen. But the winner is Alain Prost. What an amazing performance. The Monaco Grand Prix has given Alain Prost yet another exceptional victory. Next time out on the Retro Racing Managers League, we're going to witness the 1991 Indy 500 when we come back to the world of Grand Prix racing. It's Mexico. I'm Jake Sanson. See you soon.